Welcome to the Hunters Hub, a Monster Hunter community podcast for hunters by hunters. Welcome, hunters, to the Hunters Hub, episode 6. Today we're going to go into the third generation retrospective. Gog is here with us again today. Hello, Gog.
Hello.
And today we have special guest Deadeye Dave. Some of you may know him as ShadyHItchhiker.
Hello, long-time listener, first-time caller. Pleasure to be here.
And a close personal friend of mine, Bcubed.
Hey guys.
Alrighty, so like I said, today we're going to go into the third generation talks, but before we get into all that, Deadeye, how did you get into Monster Hunter?
Well, I'm a bit apprehensive to tell this story after us discussing off podcast that we're going to try and keep this short, but I think I have a unique start with the series in the fact that I basically started playing Monster Hunter with Freedom Unite when Tri was announced, because when Tri was announced, I was working as the official Nintendo rep to the Republic of Ireland, and actually found out about it in a meeting where, I guess to kind of explain the background a little bit, while I was working for Nintendo, I'd kind of travel around to stores and I'd show off new games and I'd do stuff like that and I'd try and keep the stores informed, but Nintendo and Capcom seemed to have kind of a buddy thing going on, where there wasn't any sort of official thing that I knew of, but I get information on new Capcom games when they came out, and I'd also get free copies of games. So if I was in a shop and people were buying a lot of Brain Training or Wii Sports or whatever, and Granny came up to me and said, I've beaten Brain Training 1, I've beaten Brain Training 2, what should I play? I could say, well, I've played this game called Phoenix Wright and it's super cool, you should probably try that. So I was in a meeting one time and they showed a trailer for Monster Hunter Tri, and I thought, wow, that looks pretty cool. And as I usually do in those meetings, I put up my hand and said, hey, are we going to get a free copy of this? And the guy from Nintendo said, oh, good question. I actually don't know. I'll get back to you on that one. And he never got back to me.
Typical.
So at a certain point, I was kind of playing chicken with the Monster Hunter Tri release date, and I was like, okay, I really want to be able to talk about this, but I don't know anything about this series. I have no clue, and at the time as well, it feels kind of bad looking back on it, but I was receiving posters and cardboard standees and little desktop things and t-shirts, and at the time I had no mass of the value that this stuff would have for me later, so I was just giving it out to shops and getting it all away. One day I saw in one of my shops that Monster Hunter Freedom Unite on the PSP was selling for $9.99, and I thought, all right, I'll buy that, and then I'll know what I'm talking about when the game finally comes out. So that's basically what I did. I picked that up on the PSP. I sort of blitzed through it in about 3 months. My level of play, if any of us were watching it now, we'd probably vomit on ourselves. I had no idea of skills. I knew nothing about armor. I would just brute force my way through every quest. I think
yeah, we all started there.
I think I got about 75 hours in before I even knew armor skills were a thing. But I basically beat all of Freedom Unite, I think except for Yamatsukami, just because my PSP nub broke. And I wasn't able to control my hunter anymore. But then when Tri eventually did come out, it was amazing. Tri felt to me then what Monster Hunter World seems to be now. It's just a big fresh reboot to the series. And I don't want to talk badly about second generation and before. Well, actually, I will. But I feel like it's kind of like when somebody has been in a horrendous car crash or they've had a really bad breakup. Somebody says that like going through awful events just makes you stronger as a person and it lets you look at the world in a better way. But you don't want to go and tell anybody to go get in a car crash. So it's like, I like the third generation because I've played the second generation, but I don't think I can, in good conscience, tell anybody to go play any second generation games because it's a dark place.
I think that is an apt thing to say because it's hard for me to go back even to For You after generations. It's hard because because the quality of life changes. Every game iterates on the quality of life so much. It's really hard to go back.
Yeah, quality of life is a big thing.
It really is.
It's funny with For You, I don't have as much of a problem because I like using the charge blade from For You. So, the changes to carving and stuff like that don't really bug me nearly as much.
I think it's the armor set stuff that bugs me.
What was different in that game?
I don't know. I could be getting confused with 3U versus 4U, but the way they manage armor sets, I feel, is something that I don't want to go away from. And item sets item sets.
Oh, item sets were not a thing.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. I'm like, yeah, I don't need to go through and put everything in. It's especially helpful in Double Cross.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
To be completely upfront about all of my biases and opinions, the way I'd kind of rank the most recent Monster Hunter games would be that 3U is my favorite. I think 4U is the best, and I have no kind thoughts about Generations. But talking about the quality of life changes,
that's a shame.
If you go backwards in quality of life changes, Generations is where you get a whole day to gather, which is fantastic, and it's where you get the transporter on the quests where you can just sort of send stuff back. And I think
that's also
I think it's the only game since second generation, I might be wrong about this, but I think it's the only one where you can deposit account items that aren't relevant to the quest to just get rid of them and get some points. And then if you go back to
you can do that.
You can still do that since 3, I think.
Yeah, you've been able to do that for a long time.
I've been playing a lot of 4U recently, and you can't do it in that one. Maybe you can do it in 3U.
Okay.
Huh.
And then
you can do it in 3U.
The big quality of life change in 4U is item sets. That's a huge, Light from the Sky, angels singing quality of life change that it's really tough to not have. And then if you go all the way back to Try, the quality of life changes that you got there were talismans and the ability to save item sets. But for some bizarre reason, the item sets don't record decorations.
Yeah, the other thing that I think they added in 4U is the fact that you could roll and then go into your hammer charge, which is so nice.
That's the kind of minutiae I like to hear.
It's almost invaluable movement-wise.
Okay, well, cool. I mean, that's pretty cool to hear you were a Nintendo rep. That was
surprising. That actually is insane. Every single person that comes on here, I don't know what this community is, but they're all they make me feel bad is all that matters, I guess.
It's funny.
Hey, I'm a nobody. I just, started this idea.
One of the things that won me over the most in the trailer was probably the final. I mean, anybody can Google the Monster Hunter Try regular launch trailer, but at the very end, it's the Gen Moran roaring, and I was like, oh wow, you get to fight something this big. And then in the game, when you're fighting him, you're like, oh, this is heavily scripted. This is boring as hell. But as someone who hadn't played, it's that's what roped me in. The worst thing is
You know what's funny? Sorry.
I was just going to say the worst thing is probably that I had a box of Monster Hunter T-shirts that I just gave away and didn't keep any of. That I had no idea I'd want to keep a Monster Hunter T-shirt. To be fair, they weren't that nice. I think it was just a picture of a heavy bowgunner with the iron armor with the text just saying "I am a hunter" and no logos or anything. So they weren't super nice.
I would have wore it.
Yeah, I probably would have too. But before I knew I liked Monster Hunter, I'd already given all the stuff away. So me liking it came much later.
The thing I was going to say about Gen Moran is I actually enjoy him a lot. I have no idea why, because he is heavily scripted, but I don't know, I actually enjoy, at Lalka, I enjoy, Nikarkos. For some reason, the ability to know what you need to do next and to be able to execute that well and know in a few more hits this arm's going to break, and then he's going to jump over the ship, and then he's going to pop up on the other side. I'll break his arm, and then as soon as he gets close enough, I go up his arm and I break the spear coming out of his back. Like, that would be Duran and for some reason I felt really powerful because I was a solo player that I knew how to do that. Whereas, you know, I felt powerful through the knowledge of how to do it. Whereas other monsters, it was actually like I needed my skill.
Yeah.
Which, to most people, probably is more important. But for some reason in those fights, I just felt really powerful to be able to do that.
I feel like my sweet spot
I
is
can see
the
that.
medium-sized monsters. Just I'm happy to kill anything, you know, whatever I can carve. But you know, no Kirins, no Orochi Kirins. They're too small. They weren't designed to be bosses. And then like Gen Moran, Dara Morales, all those guys. Like I'll fight them fine. It doesn't bother me too much. But like they're just too big. I like being able to, you know, back hopping through every paw slam of as an ogre. I think that's the right size of a monster. Like, nothing bothers me more than being 12 miles away from Dara Morales and he turns to look at someone else and his tail just whips me just because his model rotated in the spot. That just feels kind of stupid.
Yeah. Well, speaking of back hopping, we should probably... Well, actually, we should go over Bcubed's heritage first, and then we can go over weapons.
Amazing transition. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, so...
You're welcome. That's what I'm here for. He pays me just to do transitions. He doesn't pay me. Yeah, I'm here out of my will. I have no ability to leave.
Okay. So Bcubed, how did
look
you
how fast
get
he
into
went out of
Monster
that.
Hunter?
He doesn't want you to know.
Alright, so how'd I get into Monster Hunter? Well, it happened to be you, Fortuan.
Yeah.
I think it was second generation you showed me on the PSP. I'm pretty sure of it.
I think I showed you guys Monster Hunter 1 at my place.
Oh yeah. I totally forgot about that. You showed the Monster Hunter 1 at your place, then you had the PSP version, and played that everywhere, every day. Showed it to me quite often, and at first I wasn't too intrigued by the game. And you finally wore me down, and when Tri came out, I had a Wii, and I bought it and fell in love with the game. Fighting these mammoth beasts and carving them out, building my weapons and my armors, and then going out and doing it again was an amazing experience. And it's definitely one of my favorite games.
I did not know that. I just knew I was more into it than everyone else.
So that's what got me into it. And then after that, obviously I got a Wii U, and that was one of the reasons why I got it, because we knew what Ultimate was coming out, so I got Ultimate, and I really liked Ultimate. I think Ultimate probably is my favorite version as well, so far. The list of monsters, some of my faves are in that monster. Some of my favorite monsters are in there. Brachydius being one of them. Enjoyed fighting him. I did enjoy 4. I believe 4 added the vaulting and the mounting mechanics, which were really cool mechanics. I think some of the stuff in 4 is great, but just some of my favorite monsters in general were introduced in Cry Ultimate. So that is definitely my favorite version.
Yeah, it's got. I was sad to see a lot of monsters go, but that happens with every generation transition.
Yeah.
As we'll get into today.
Yeah.
For sure.
Bcubed makes a really good point there, and probably the reason that 3U is my favorite is probably the monster roster. And it's not like a question of pure like functionality and like mechanics. It's just sort of a feeling that like, yes, this is the good stuff. Like this is the best roster I think in the game. And then you can kind of hear the designers, and the designers are like, hey, we're going to do 4U. And we're like, yes. We're going to do all these cool new monsters. And we're like, yes. And they're like, we're going to put in stuff from Freedom Unite. We're like, no. It's like, hey, guys, do you like Congalala? No. What about Velocidrome? Oh, God, stop.
I really don't understand what they did with like the bird wyverns in that game. They're like, let's just throw back all the dromes and let's just leave the Jaggy because they like it. And then they just got rid of it.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, Drome and Fango are swear words.
Well, Generations was about celebrating the history of Monster Hunter, and arguably the drones are more attached to the series than the Augies were.
Yeah, maybe Monster Hunters should learn from recent American political events and perhaps say that not all of your history needs to be celebrated. You can forget about the bad stuff.
Yeah, but we're not the ones who control what happens. It's Capcom, so they decide what's important to bring back and not.
The only thing I will say about Tri and Ultimate is that I wasn't a big fan of the water battles.
Okay.
So
well, we can. I mean, that's going to be the whole topic today. Is that
yeah,
whole series?
right.
So, yeah, we can save it till then. All right. So moving on, we'll talk about what are your top 3 monsters, Deadeye.
My list is kind of cheating in a way because you guys know I've been listening to this podcast since the start because I'm a big fan of like grassroots community efforts and I like that you're doing this. So rather than my favorite monster, because I did the Meet the Monster thing with Capcom when they were doing that, and I picked the Devil Joe. So I wanted to pick 3 monsters that I thought didn't get shout outs on your podcast thus far that I think are really good. So, like, if anybody wants to hear me talk about Devil Joe, there's a YouTube video with that in there. But for my first pick, I'd pick the Korapeko.
Okay.
That was my sound effects pause. Mostly because of what I feel like is the difference in design quality between the second generation and the third generation. And I'm really enforcing whoever is the guest on the second generation podcast to come back and, fight all the points I'm complaining about. But I'm still going to complain about them while no one else is here. But the first big bird you fight in the first and second generation games is the Uncut Q. And I've never held a strong opinion about the Uncut Q. It just looks kind of like a weird bird, bat chicken thing. Just from a design perspective.
There's fighting words for lots of people on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people love the Uncut Q.
Yeah, you guys like a lot of monsters that I don't have a high regard for. But then you get to the third generation, and it just sort of shows this just better design ethos they come from. So they're like, okay, it's a bird, and it has a trumpet for a beak. So it's kind of like a bard monster. And it can puff up its chest like a frog, and then it can, exhale the air through the trumpet, so it sings. And because it can sing, it can do buffs, it can do healing, and then it can also summon other monsters. And then a nice little touch, it spits corrosive fluid, but then the little extra step is that on its wings, it's got flints. And if it spits the fluid right as it cracks the flints together, it produces little fireballs. And I think that's all just great. It's so much better than just a kind of bat chicken that sort of pecks and spits fireballs. It's just they really put in the effort, I think, on the Korapeko. And it's a great first monster from a design perspective, but also from a game progression perspective, because that's the monster that you get green sharpness weapons from in all the third generation games, which I think is fantastic. And also, in my personal opinion, in Tri, it was the best beginner set. Because when you made it, you got, I think it was Defense Medium, Evasion 2, Item Use Up, and probably most importantly for a new player, really high fire resistance. Because there's not a lot of offensive elements in Tri, and fire res is really kind of all you needed.
Yeah. That's a good point. I always used to say Baroth because of the high defense, but that's a good one too.
Baroth was a very good starter armor, honestly.
Yeah. Okay. What are the other 2, or are you just going to say one?
See, this is what I'm saying. It's tough for me to keep this podcast short. My second one was actually going to be the Cedius.
Okay. It's a fun boss.
Yeah. There's not much of a plot in the third gen, but the little plot is that as a hunter, you're sort of carrying forward the hopes and dreams of the Moga village that is about to be destroyed. And I think it's a nice fight where the first phase is you're just kind of following it and you're trying to stop it, and it's just bigger than anything you've ever seen. But then when it stops to the second phase, like the music swells and then the chorus starts up and it's kind of like Moga Village is singing along with you, and it's just like a really cool moment. And like people don't like fighting Cedius because it's like underwater and it's a big monster. It's kind of a big monster. I don't mind because you're able to move around in 3 dimensions, and I think that's kind of one of the sticking points about swimming as a mechanic. In that, like, I agree with Bcubed that it's not great a lot of the time. Like the worst example is probably if you're in the flooded forest and you're fighting like Gobel or Lagiacrus. But when you're in the gigantic like 360 arenas where you can go anywhere, I think it's a lot of fun. So I wanted to give a shout out to the Cedius for like the boss nobody likes and nobody wants to fight.
Yeah. Okay. So what's your third?
My third, for kind of the same reasons as the Cedius, is the Gormagala.
Okay. Yeah.
I really like the Gormagala.
Yeah.
Honestly, I like the movement patterns that it uses, especially.
Yeah, I think he's just like great design top to bottom. Like everything I was talking about with the Korapeko, the Gormagala is just like more of that in spades. And I think he's important because he's basically Monster Hunter's first villain. The first time you encounter him is when you're doing the quest when you're saving the Ace Cadets, or the Ace Hunters from the file, and then later he attacks you when you're in transition on the boat, spoiler warning, and finally you kill him, and, you know, more spoiler warnings for 4 Ultimate, is that he pulls a true villain move and goes, haha, this isn't even my final form, and then you discover in the plot that you've basically been fighting the Monster Hunter equivalent of a Metapod, and the Butterfree is yet to come.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
So yeah, I just wanted to give those 3 monsters a shout outs because I'm sick of hearing people saying nice things about Keizo and Diablos.
Hey, you lay off of Diablos.
Fight me, bro. Fight me.
Oh, man. Hey, I will. I think. No, I'm good. I've made my point as to why I like Diablos a ton of times, but
It's all good.
I was going to say, I think one of the things is you could make an argument that Lagiacrus might have been the first villain, maybe even Tigrex. Granted, it's not as fleshed out as Gormagala is because it's the only one that's fleshed out as a story, but Tigrex is the first time that you're specifically shown a monster that it's like, you're not ready for this yet. You have to get stronger to beat him.
I mean, it was pretty cool when he showed up when you were gathering the monster guts, but
to...
I feel like ultimately in the bigger context of the story, he was kind of framed, and you just killed him unnecessarily.
Yeah, but that's not true with the Tigrex in the Monster Hunter Freedom 2 and Ultimate. The Tigrex attacks you on a Popodrum tongue quest, and it's actually in the intro of number 2.
That was a pretty sweet intro
you
movie.
Basically get bruised up.
Yeah.
He like knocks you off a cliff, and then you wake up in your house, and they're like, "Yeah, you've been trashed for a while. You can go get up and fight more."
Yeah. Yeah. So you could make an argument that they're the first villains, but I don't think it's a 100% argument. I don't think it's a you're wrong kind of thing, because he is the most built up as a villain. The other ones,
yeah, we could.
They would be a goal, but
I'm sure we could discuss for days the difference in the spectrum between an obstacle and a villain. But that's all good. I mean, the only last thing I'll say about Gormagala is that he basically has a cape.
Yeah. It's very cool.
Yeah,
the design on his body is ridiculous. I love it.
Yeah,
especially when he goes into frenzy and he spreads out his wings and you can see his full body.
Yeah,
the tint on the screen, it becomes gray. It's very cool.
Yeah, I know we're not talking about For You now, but that was definitely a moment in the game where I was like, wait a minute, is he a dragon? Holy crap, this is cool.
Yeah. Okay, so Bcubed, what are your top 3?
Alright, top 3. Number 1 on my list would be the Bcubed. I'm a fan of the Brute Wyverns, and Brachydius with his ability to punch the ground and leave slime puddles, or hit the hunters and blind them, and then later on watch, you run in fear as you're going to explode.
It's That's exactly what happens.
or dodge these puddles exploding around you. I thought that fight was really interesting, and which segues to my second favorite monster, which would be the Bear-off, which is very similar, but Bear-off, the puddles he leaves don't actually blow up. They stick to you, slow you down, slow your movement, keep you from attacking, and then he just runs you over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then
that's surprising to me because how much a bad time we had fighting Bear-off.
Oh yeah, we had some struggles, but it was the first big monster. Big monster. I was like, oh my gosh, this is hard. I'm attacking him. My weapon's bouncing off 90% of his body. I had to shatter different pieces.
Yeah.
So we can finally actually do some real damage. I'm constantly sharpening my weapon, making sure I can actually do some damage. It was a very interesting battle. The first times through.
Just a little context. I have talked about this on a previous podcast. Our mutual friend Austin was the one that kept us from winning that quest.
Wow, just throwing him under the bus, aren't you?
Oh, I threw him under the bus when I talked about it last time. He was triple carding, and I was like at the point where I was hitting him to knock him out of the way.
And he would launch me a lot. He launched us a lot. When we first played, I get launched right over the bear, right into his path, and he just run right over and pummel me. So those were some very interesting fights we had with him. But I really enjoyed those battles. And then I'd have to say Durandaros.
Duram.
It was a very strange monster. The first time, because I didn't actually know how the fight was going to go the first time we actually battled this guy. And so I'm seeing this guy, using his centrifugal force, turning, and then just launch himself, which he shouldn't be able to launch himself that high at that size. But he launches himself up, and then you just go running in fear, like, oh, it has to come down. It's coming down at some point. So you slant out of the way and hope it doesn't come down on you. And then the fact you could mine him was really cool. I thought that was another really cool aspect they added to that. That was just something a little bit different than you'd seen.
Give hammer users that one tail they can cut off.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
And that was so satisfying to be able to smash his tail off, man. I loved that.
Yeah. It made sense, too.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So, for the final question, what is your main or favorite weapon, Deadeye?
My main weapon, down to the core of my being, is the lance. More specifically, the guard lance. Mostly because I was telling you guys earlier that I basically just smashed through Freedom Unite with my face. I had no idea what I was doing. I just got it all the time, and I just wore armors for defense. And that all came to an end when I got to the Tigrex quest, and he beat the crap out of me. So I had to look around and try and do a little bit of research, and that's when I found out. Actually, it was in the arena, because I love the arena as well. I was fighting the Congalala with a gun lance, I think, and he did his stupid swipey swipe fall down attack, and he missed all the swipey swipes. But when he fell down, I noticed that you could block the earthquake with the shield, and I was like, hang on a second.
And that's when you knew.
You can block earthquakes? What else can you block? And I went and I found out, I was like, oh, basically everything in a way that doesn't make sense with physics or science. This is great. So
you can block everything but a straight up beam.
Yeah, I think beams and farts is the
That's why I like gun lance.
Can't block beams and you can't block farts. But I got...
That's exactly why I like gun lance. Oh, sorry. I thought you were done.
Oh, I was just going to say that I got the guard skills on, I think it was the Centaur armor, and I went back in with that, and with that I was able to beat the Tigrex finally. And at that point it was a match made in heaven forever. And you can imagine my surprise going into Monster Hunter Tri, pressing all the buttons randomly and finding what looked like a great sword charge attack on one of them. And I was thinking, what's this? This is weird. I guess I charge it up and it just does more damage. And I was doing that in a lot of monsters for a long time. before one of them hit me while I was doing it, and then I counter-stabbed them, and I thought, oh my god, I have arrived. And I mostly only use Lance in try, and then to beat 3 ultimate, but once I beat 3 ultimate, I kind of eased up on Lance usage a bit because I felt bad for the other weapons, but mostly I use everything. But even in a game where I have no uses of a Lance, I'm a Lancer in my heart, and definitely a Guard Lancer.
Don't feel bad. I'm playing Double Cross, that I have been off and on, and I have no aspirations to use anything but the Charge Blade in that game right now. I have not even touched another weapon. I immediately started the game, switched to a Charge Blade, and I have not even considered switching back.
It's like, the thing I was going to say before, though, is with, all your guarding that you love. That's honestly why I liked the Gun Lance so much when I first found out about it, because it had everything I wanted. I could protect myself with nearly any situation. I didn't have to worry about dodging and getting stuck. It helped me defeat the Urgan, which was my wall in 3U, or try. Well, after getting past try to 3U, I had the Gun Lance, and that's kind of how it helped me buy that. And it shot explosions, which is the coolest thing ever to a 14-year-old. So
yeah, that's good.
I just loved it.
Yep. Bcubed, what about you?
Alright, so my favorite weapon is a Charge Blade. And the reason being is I really love the sword and shield and try. Mm-hmm. But as I tried to play in solo, I ran into a wall with the sword and shield. I couldn't beat certain monsters fast enough. I had trouble dealing out enough damage or cutting tails that were too high. So I had to switch over from sword and shield, which what I really loved, to I went and started playing the longsword heavily. And I played the longsword from try and try ultimate is what I played a longsword. I played a longsword. And then when we got to 4, I said, oh, Charge Blade. Sword and shield, but also dishes out a lot more damage when I transform. I was like, I can actually solo with this. So, Charge Blade is definitely my new favorite right now.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I definitely do like the sword and shield part. But what's funny, if you watch a lot of Eric's new gameplay that he had when he went over to Japan and got to play, all he used was Charge Blade because he wanted to advance, and he wanted to just focus on the game. And it's funny to watch him because he is always in sword mode. He almost never, goes into axe mode to deal out a ton of damage when the monster falls down. He's very focused on attacking with sword and shield, and then going into his super from sword and shield, which puts him back in sword and shield. He never leaves it, and that's like a perfectly usable strategy that is, very common from the 4U era where you could do that. And I actually play a lot like Fortuan because even though I played the Charge Blade in 4U, at that time I was not good. I didn't know how to guard point, so I just would go into axe mode when I could, and I used the axe mode. And it's kind of been ingrained into my brain, so when I see a monster go down, I always immediately do the axe chop, the conversion into the axe, to then attack with it.
Same here.
It's one of the reasons that I liked Brave Charge Blade a lot.
Yeah, I really like the Charge Blade as well.
What were we gonna say?
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say that I also really like the Charge Blade. Because in 3U, I can show you guys my guild card afterwards, but I think I had over 1,000 uses of Lance, and I had about 450 uses of every other weapon, because I tried to bring them up and put a pause to Lance. So when 4U was on the horizon, I said, okay, when this game comes out, I'm only allowed to use those 2 new weapons, the bug stick and slashy axe thing. I don't know what they're called. And I went into them with complete ignorance. So I think it took me a long time to even figure out how to do the... I don't know what you call it, but when you put the blade energy into the shield, or you stop a discharge and you charge up your shield, and also a shockingly long time to figure out how to do a insect glaive vault. But I only played 4U with those 2 weapons until I beat it, and then I branched out a bit. But yeah, Charge Blade is great.
Wow.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, I think that wraps us up for intros, so we'll get into the main topic, which is third generation.
Woo.
Yay! I can finally talk about something
Hurrah.
that makes sense to me. We should also probably point out now the non-existent second gen podcast currently.
Yeah, so because of scheduling reasons, we have to do the third generation before the second generation. But the second generation will probably be coming soon, as in the following week. So, if things go well enough, but we'll get to it. We didn't forget about it, it's just that we had, just as far as getting guests on the podcast, it was just easier to get third generation out of the way first. So, all that said, a little bit of backstory to sort of leading up into Try, which is the first of the third generations. 3U or Try for Freedom Ultimate had been out for, I want to say, 2 years before we got Try. It was a little bit of a gap. Of course, as I've mentioned before, the biggest U.S. release gap was actually between Try and 3 Ultimate, which was 4 years.
It's a tough time.
So, but there was a bit of a gap. Huh?
I was just saying it was a tough time, that gap.
Yeah. It was. It was a tough time between 4 Ultimate and Try for me. So, Try was announced for the Wii. And that sort of caused a lot of speculation and sparks about why they were leaving Sony to go to Nintendo and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's
Sounds so familiar.
Yeah. Yeah, so that kind of reflects the whole Monster Hunter World going, multi-platform off of Nintendo. But, I mean, essentially, there was a lot of problems with going HD, and they weren't ready to do that yet. It was too expensive. And Sony required you to also implement trophies. That was a thing. Eventually. And by the time Monster Hunter would have came out, it would have needed trophies. So they were like, yeah, we don't do that. Even though they kind of do. There is achievements in the game.
Yeah.
I mean, there has been since Freedom 2, I think. But they're like, nah, we don't want to do that, and it's going to take too much money. Because one of the things about Monster Hunter is it's always been a very successful series, partially because it's not the most expensive to make either. It's never been focused on the highest fidelity graphics. It's never been focused on using the latest and greatest technology. Yeah, it was literally made as a example of how you can do online games, and then it's just sort of ran since. So it's a testament to just how fun the concept is, that you don't need to have the best graphics for this thing to run. So they put it on the Wii because Nintendo's like, hey, we'll help out. So they had exclusivity for a while. So there was actually a really decent marketing push in the US, at least, for Try. I remember, and I don't watch UFC or that kind of stuff, but Bcubed did, and he showed me it was an MMA fight, I think, that Try had sponsored.
Oh wow!
And Legiacris was in the ring, the logo in the center of the MMA ring was Legiacris.
Holy crap!
That's awesome.
There was
That was
TV
cool.
commercials and that kind of stuff, so there was actually a decent marketing push for Try. There had been a marketing push for Freedom Unite, I remember. Not as big, but it ran on children's networks like Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network. And it was just a single TV commercial that I remember. But Try had a pretty decent marketing push. And then it comes
one of my
out.
favorite commercials. There was this big dude. He had a beard. He's a big buff guy, and he's walking around. I don't remember. He might have done other ones, but
Iron
he's
Beard.
at a McDonald's. He's got a big truck, and he's like, got a monster in the back of my truck. Could you cook it up for me? And all this stuff. Oh my god, it was hilarious.
Oh, there was not just one commercial. It
wasn't? I gotta find
there
other ones.
are at least 4, maybe 5 or 6. So my
god,
favorite
I need to find these.
is the one where he's making fun of the African Sahara like nature shows.
Okay.
And there's one of like a lion chasing down a gazelle. And it catches the gazelle, and he's like, the beauty of nature, blah, blah, blah. And it's Ironbeard talking, the same guy.
Yeah.
And then he's like, but it wouldn't be if they were such a pussycat or something like that. He's just making fun. And then like the music is like this tribal like bongo stuff. And then it goes like, oh, like the singers in the background just sort of go, oh, and then it's like, well, if you really want to hunt something, hunt a monster, and goes into the trailer. Oh my gosh! It's just they're so cheesy and just great.
That's why it was so good though, because he's like talking to all these people at the McDonald's. He's like, "Can you cook it up?" And they're like, "We can't take that in there." He's like, "But why?" He's like, "We do it all the time at home."
yeah. It was a pretty good like marketing push. I really like that stuff.
It's just so cartoony. It was great.
So there was all this hype and stuff, and we were all ready. One of the big things about Try is it was the first real like model update to the game. So you get the original games, and they sort of improved them in the second generation, but really they just added more models that had updated stuff. They didn't update the hitboxes too much. I mean, that's why Freedom Unite gets a lot of bad rap for being hard. It's because the hitboxes were outrageous. There was no such thing as like standing under a wing.
Yeah.
It was their hitbox was a giant square that included their wings all the way down to the ground.
Oh,
yeah,
that's horrible.
Yeah, so like it was tough because of that kind of stuff. But they fixed all of that kind of stuff with Try. They fixed a lot of the models, but
yeah, they basically
when I say a lot of
the
models, I mean only 3 monsters made it back. So we were 50 plus monsters, I want to say.
And we dropped down to 18.
18 large monsters, I should specify.
Yes.
There's more if you include stuff like
Aptonoth and
the minion monsters.
Jaggies.
Kind of They did away with Vespoids and Hornitars, replaced with the
Benabras and
Apsaros and Benabra.
Yeah.
Altaroth,
I was going to say Altaroth. The
Apsaros are the large
yeah.
club-tailed things, which did go away and came back in for you.
No, they were still there.
No, they were. They were?
Not in third generation,
I
they weren't.
Say yes, but I can't remember.
I mean, Balfango were replaced by
Renaplos.
Renoplos.
Yeah, we're talking about Apsaros, not Bullfango.
No. I was just gonna list off other things just to say that a lot of things were just replaced with other things that kind of were playing their role, but just had a different aesthetic feel.
Yeah, except for Aptonoth. Aptonoth stayed. They're pretty. I mean, if you talk about herbivores and Monster Hunter, Aptonoth are pretty much as iconic as they come.
It's where you got your meat to make your well-done steak.
Mm-hmm.
You like your first quest, you always ran out and slaughtered one.
So, Try coming out, there was a lot of updates and a lot of things that happened. Just a couple of the mechanics that were new. Obviously, swimming, water battles. It was the first real attempt at 3-dimensional fighting instead of like being equivalent to fighting like in a top-down game, essentially. Only back and forth movement. Or X and Y axis, if you want to be technical. There wasn't anything such as a pin beforehand, so monsters could pin you in the third generation now. There was such thing as extra monsters on a quest, but they were always the same monster. Devil Joe was the first thing to be like, "Hey, I'm everywhere, and I'm going to wreck your day." Like.
Devil Joe's
subquests started. Yeah. Subquests started in third generation. A lot of like quality of life, for instance, like nodes, that kind of stuff. Like it used to be like a mining node it wasn't a node, it was like a straight up like a crack in the wall.
Oh yeah,
An area.
that's the first thing that you've said that
I mean,
have
even
on my
in
notes
Try
to
that
talk
was
about.
inconsistent
Sorry,
too. I was just gonna say, even in Try that was still kind of inconsistent because most of the time it was a node, but sometimes it would be like this one crack in the wall on this one map, and that would be the only time you'd ever see anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like for the tutorial of how to mine, which was really weird.
That was definitely a thing I disliked about second
Right.
generation was
Because it was almost useless.
the static gathering nodes that you'd go up to a crack in the wall and you'd be mining and it wouldn't change at all. And if you were like me and you found gathering quests really boring, you'd be kind of doing something else, and you'd have to look down and see the message that said nothing found, and then you'd be like, oh, did that say nothing found? I better mine that again, and it goes nothing found. And I'm not 100% if
I'm pretty sure in Try that was removed, but Freedom Unite that was definitely a thing.
Yeah, so I love
Freedom Unite. You had no indication by UI that you could mine somewhere.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or
that you needed to stop.
It was ridiculous.
So the
You could just
respawning
I
break
lost
all
so
your
many
pickaxes
pickaxes in that
on-
game.
Yeah.
I like that the respawning nodes fixed that, and especially that on some maps like the volcano, you had a particular room. It was Area 5 in Try that just like the nodes would continuously come back, so you could keep mining if you wanted to.
Yep.
It is also the first time you saw more active bosses. So even though you really wouldn't consider Gen Moran too much of an active boss, it still attacked you more often than Leo Shun did.
Oh God, Leo Shun.
And Elatrion. Elatrion was by far one of the most aggressive boss monsters. It felt like an actual other monster fight. I guess you could say a Cantor was considered a boss monster at one point. And he was pretty active. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of changes towards the positive, but the problem, but there was the water mechanic, and I mentioned before, Try is the only one that had the lighting mechanic so far.
Yes.
There was the only one that had dark caves.
The lighting mechanic. I actually
which
forgot to mention that.
apparently that was bad enough for them to immediately remove.
That left pretty quickly.
Yeah.
There was an entire flame
That was
mechanic.
one of the most frustrating things to do. Sorry.
I'd say the flame mechanic, where if you have what's counted as flame on you, that small monsters are repelled from you, except for small insects, which are attracted to you, and then you can use it to light basically one room in the game, which is a cave where you fight Giganox, and it's not useful for much else. But the Flame Aura armor skill also had the same effect as a torch, which was really, really good if you were going to be running an armor set that had adrenaline or heroics, because it was good for keeping the small monsters off you. And I, with the crazy levels of small monster aggression and Monster Hunter Generations, I'm actually disappointed that Flame Aura isn't a skill in that game, because I would absolutely equip it.
So, all of that's sort of an intro to what Try was and how we got to it. So how did you guys feel about playing Try when you were there, just in general?
When 3U didn't exist?
Yeah.
Okay.
I loved it. It was so good. I'm a big quality over quantity guy, and I was so happy that they just caught all the nonsense, like Congolalas, Velocidromes, all those crappy monsters, and they just sort of had this new fresh roster and all new maps, because I think even in Freedom Unite I was playing it and I knew nothing about any of the other Monster Hunter games, but those maps in there called Old Swamp and Old Forest, and I was like, New Forest, and they all kind of looked equally bad. It was I loved it so much. It was such a huge step up. I can't say enough nice things about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
The one thing I'd have to say I really enjoyed it. I guess the change-wise, I hear a lot that the hitboxes were changed drastically. That would have affected me throughout Try if it was a giant square. Fighting things like the Rathian, I loved ducking under the wings, going under the tail, and chopping off the tail with sword and shield. So having a giant square as a hitbox, from what I hear from everybody else playing prior versions, would have just killed a lot of the gameplay for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I agree. I think the game was very hard, especially for me. Like when I started out, I had no idea what I was doing, and that was one of the few things I was really able to figure out is how do I get around this monster to survive, because I was so bad that I couldn't really figure that out, because I had watched Octane Blue a lot to learn what I needed to do in some ways. But that was more like stats and stuff. I kind of learned about those things. I just didn't know how to use them or implement them. So when I actually got out there in the field and I saw a giant monster coming at me, I froze. I didn't know what to do, and I get trashed. So I think if it was just a wall, I think I probably would have turned away from the game, because I know I was like, oh, how did that hit me? How did that hit me? And got angry all the time because the game was so hard for me.
exactly.
So that definitely probably would have turned me away from the game. I'm also happy that Rathalos and Raytheon had a different skeleton from the originals, because, again, that would have been a very annoying thing to deal with. I also am very happy on it. Like, I remember, and like these are things that actually I was happy about when I first played the game. Not just things I'm seeing looking back. The roster, as Deadeye said, felt huge to me because every single monster was a huge feat to get by. Baroth was such a huge wall back in Tri because he had so much health. And for you at the beginning, it's a very daunting task to kill him. I remember playing weeks on end, or not weeks, but I remember playing at least 2 weeks fighting him after I got home from school, before I could actually kill him. Because I took breaks from the game. I know it was probably a week's worth of playing, but it was very hard to beat him. I remember I beat him with the longsword, and that was when I learned, oh, longsword's completely broken in this game, but I was bad at it, so I couldn't play with it.
I do remember that the
so
optimum way to
then
play
I went
longsword
back-
and try was to just get a full spirit gauge, like the first time by like.
And then you wouldn't stop.
Yeah.
Then you just wouldn't stop.
Because when I think
Yeah.
when you got
Because your spirit gauge stayed to the filled.
yeah, when you got it full, it would stay, or when you did your spirit combo, it would give you like infinite spirit gauge for a limited period of time. So the optimum longsword playstyle was to tentatively and like gingerly press the X button as many times as you could, or as few times as you could, and then just mash your
And then
face
as
against
soon-
ore for the next like 45 minutes.
Yep. That's exactly what happened. Unfortunately, I was really bad at that, so I ended up using the hammer. And that was how I got really far in the game. I couldn't beat Uragan. But I definitely think that the hammer's weight, that overall feeling, was also what kept me going in that game. I hadn't played a lot of open world games ever at this age. I played Uncharted games, I played Kingdom Hearts games, I played Battlefront. None of those were huge, large areas. I don't think I ever played a game like that until I played Far Cry. So, that was never a problem for me, the going to different areas. So it actually felt huge to me. Sometimes I would just go out and I would just explore because I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
And, I wasn't aware of the potential that, games had to make a full world and show it off, So, to me, that was absolutely amazing. It was very cool to see all the different monsters.
One thing you said there, Gog, that
Well,
I
for
wanted
me,
to mention before I forgot was you said that Baroth had a lot of health. It's probably worth pointing out at this point that the monsters in Monster Hunter Tri have the most health of any recent Monster Hunter game since the Dark Times. That's what I'm going to call second generation. I know if you talk to people, you hear a lot the saying that quests are scaled for 2 people, and people repeat that a lot, and
That game.
I've never seen any evidence for that, but like we'll just let that fly. I'm pretty sure if that is true, then Tri was definitely scaled for 4 people, because those guys were hard to kill.
Yeah.
They're also
Yeah.
hard in the single player, too, which is why it was so crazy to me. Because I never played online. I wasn't there at that time. It was already closed off.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, I was gonna throw out there that
I
Tri
think, anyway.
really felt like you wanted to play with other people. I mean, the single player was great, but some of the monsters, the difficulty of the monsters because of the health and whatnot, just coordinating with a team of 3 guys just felt right in Try.
Well, that's another thing that's funny.
Yeah.
And it's because, like, I was very... I didn't play video games until I think I was 10 or 11. I got a PS2, and I found out Santa didn't exist because my mom was arguing with my dad for buying a PS2 from Santa.
Jesus, spoilers.
And... just cover your ears, everything's gonna be okay.
Fortuan, go back and bleep that out in post.
Gog's
it's my turn today,
one.
so I have the power. Anyway, yeah. So, like, I played Kingdom Hearts, I played War of the Monsters, just a lot of really terrible games, or not so terrible games on PS2. I moved up to a Wii, got Mario games, found out about Monster Hunter, and played this game. And, before that, I had very little experience with playing video games in general, so I also lived out in, the middle of the woods in Vermont, so that kind of makes it a little hard to play with other people, especially when everyone had, their Super Nintendo, and I was just sitting there like, oh, that's cool. Or not the Super Nintendo, what did they have? The Game Boy Advance, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Everyone had the Transformers game on the Game Boy Advance, they all played against each other.
You had a very specific childhood.
I was on the outside looking in.
Bcubed can attest that I used to live out in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
You'd have to drive a half hour to get to the nearest town. It was.
Oh yeah, well you're
there.
like middle, you're like the west, like Midwest, so you have a whole bunch of nothing in between.
Southern Ohio is not that bad.
Oh, okay.
Central Ohio is awful, but it's Southern Ohio is hills and stuff. It's like Kentucky.
I've been there. That's a whole other story.
Yeah.
I wanted to follow on from something that Bcubed said there that was really good, is that the game made you want to play with people. It's probably a good point to bring up that there was 2 methods of communication in this game. The ever-popular one that everybody I know used and increased the sales of this device very well was the USB keyboard. I know I bought one just to use with this game, and a lot of other people I knew did as well. But one kind of forgotten element of this game is that it was one of, I think, only 2 titles compatible with the Wii Speak.
That is correct. I think it was that and
Animal Crossing. Yes.
Oh my god.
I have a bit of a peek behind the curtain on this one because I know that the Wii Speak was kind of a weird moment where Nintendo decided to draw a line in the sand to try and combat GameStop's practice of selling pre-owned games. So nobody might know this because nobody used a Wii Speak because they ended up being terrible, but there was actually a code in the box and you needed that code to activate the Wii Speak, and without the code you couldn't activate it, so if you bought one pre-owned it wouldn't work. So that was their attempt to try and bite into the second-hand game market a little bit, and it just didn't work because the Wii Speak was a big pile of crap.
Oh man,
I can attest to it because I did own one.
Absolutely, I owned one too. Like, I mean, this is kind of an embarrassment of riches story because at the time I was a Nintendo rep, so they gave me a Wii and like all the associated accessories so that I would be knowledgeable about it, and I played it a lot. But I also had a second Wii that I used to bring out to shops to show games to people. So what I would do in my apartment is that I would literally have 3 people in my apartment with 3 Wiis on 3 televisions. And I'd post up a room request in GameFAQs, and I'd be like, hey, I've got a room that already has 3 people full. You know, one of you lucky folks can join me. And that was a great time. With the slight downside that a point about the Tri network architecture is that if anybody's connection drops, you're booted basically back to the title screen and you lose everything. So that was a bit of an unfortunate thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it was. It was not fun. It was better than having to log in through a janky browser like you did in the PS2 version. That was fun. Oh my gosh. What I was going to say is, for me, I always say that the next game in the line is the most favorite. I think Try is the exception to that rule for me. So Try, I loved it until I hit Endgame. And that's where the 18 monsters really hurt it for me. I love the new monsters. I love the new models and that kind of stuff. I think Leviathans generally are my favorite monster types. Because I love Legiacris. Ignactor is my favorite, second favorite monster. I just like the fluidity of their movement. They feel so real and so cool to me. But you get to the end game, and I did everything you could. I completed every quest in the Wii version, and then I was done. It was the first Monster Hunter that I dropped right after I beat everything, and I didn't keep going because I felt like I did everything so many times already. It was just like, I'm done. I have no reason to stick around. And by that time, Bcubed had moved on to other games along with our friend Austin. We were all playing Smash or something else at that time. So, yeah.
Oh boy, don't even get me started on that game. That's a whole nother thing.
Do not also even get me started.
Good thing it's a Monster Hunter podcast. But yeah, so we had moved on to other things, and I think at that point I had also picked up a PS3, which is actually how we chatted. Bcubed and we actually used PS3 to chat through the PlayStation stuff before, so we would turn on the PlayStation and then switch the TV over to the Wii.
Oh God, that's so crazy.
I heard a lot of stories, even as a Nintendo rep, of people who were playing Nintendo games online together, but using PS3s to communicate.
Yeah.
Good job with that We Speak, Nintendo.
A bad idea.
Good
job. I think I tried briefly to use the We Speak, but there was a lot of feedback from the television.
Yeah.
That was that killed it instantly.
It was a great way to emulate the sound of a guy doing a traffic report from inside of a helicopter.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Deadeye, I'm guessing you don't work there anymore since you're bashing them.
Oh, I'm not bashing them. They're a fantastic company. They're wonderful to work for. I don't work for them anymore, but it's just the We Speak was not a good product.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was just like,
honest, right?
is he allowed to say that?
No, I think even Reggie admits when something's bad on Nintendo a lot of the time.
That's true.
I think recently they had some admission of the failure of the Wii U, I believe, but from Reggie.
Oh yeah, Miyamoto was talking about that. Something like that. I think the only thing they haven't admitted that has been a failure is Star Fox Zero. I think that's the only thing they haven't admitted.
Like with the Switch, there hasn't really been any problems for them to address besides like the storage thing with LA Noire and all that, but that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah. So, is there anything else that people had to say about Try that?
I actually have a list here. I can just
portable third?
I can just run through things pretty quickly if you want.
I was gonna hit.
Sorry. Oh, go on, Gog.
Well, yeah, I do want to keep in mind that we are already an hour in. So
I thought we should definitely talk about probably the elephant in the room, just like third gen wise, which is swimming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we did mention it, but yeah. So the swimming was the attempt to get that Z-axis in your movement. Personally, I actually enjoyed swimming.
I did.
The reason for me is that a lot of monsters that were water-based in the second generation, they were just unfightable till they landed. And specifically Plesioth. I would fail quests because Plesioth would not come out of the water.
Really?
Yeah, so there was points where you would have Plesioth and it's doing his wow, wow, like high-pitched, like squealing.
And you couldn't deal with him in the water?
And he was in the water, and you couldn't go in after him.
Oh, you're talking about like the earlier games. I thought you were talking about in Try.
Yeah,
because in Try he's easy in the water.
He's not in Try. He's not.
He's in 3U?
Yeah,
he's in 3U.
Oh. Okay, I'm getting confused because I'm thinking about playing with Gunlance.
No, he was not in. He was not in Try at all, which I thought was stupid because he was like the only thing that I was like, yes, I finally can go fight him. But he always had this problem: is he would swim back and forth. He'd pop out and he'd do his spray, his jet stream.
Yeah.
And he'd pop back down. He'd swim and he'd pop up. And it was like, okay, I'm just going to dodge forever. So the accepted method was to sonic bomb him out. You would throw a sonic bomb, he would pop out, and then he would jump up on the land. Well, RNG, randomness, and that kind of stuff, he wouldn't go back in sometimes. Or he wouldn't come out.
Yeah.
You would hit him with sonic bombs and he wouldn't come out. So
Wasn't there a specific time you had to hit him with it, though?
no. Not really.
You
As
just
long
had to
as he
upset
was
him in
like where
exactly
you
the
were
right
at.
way. You had to be in that particular mood. Those quests in Freedom Unite, as well as the Cephadrome quests, were quests where I felt like they should have just given you an item that was called the Infinite Sonic Bomb that you could throw forever. Because
Cephadrome.
without that item existing,
Yeah,
those quests
it's-
were
Oh,
atrocious
gosh.
to do.
Now, don't get me wrong, I love Plesia's design. I think it's so cool. I love that monster, but fighting him in the earlier generations was just not cool.
Yeah, I don't
He
think
was not a good fight.
I don't
to
think
begin
there's a
with.
good design defense against, hey, this is a monster you're going to have to fight, but you're not going to be able to fight him unless he wants to come near you. And there's nothing you can do about it.
Right. And I was so excited when you can swim and try. And then he wasn't in the game. And I was like, well, okay. But I don't see why you did that. But
I mean, there might have been a few people that are like, he's just a fish with legs. Do we really need him in the new game where we're trying to have cool monsters? And then they realized, oh, it's okay. We can still have fun.
yeah,
In the third,
he's
the
not-
ultimate game.
he's more than a fish. He's a shark.
Yeah.
Okay, he's a shark with legs. He's
Yeah.
basically a reverse mermaid.
But yeah, like, I don't know. I like the sharkness of him, the sort of cool like death machine that sharks are. He definitely exudes that. But the other thing is, like, with the water stuff, is it was kind of cool to do some movements, but the problem that it created, and I think that's across the board, is it was slow movement, and people don't like that because Monster Hunter, you're already kind of slow in perception in comparison to other games, and to slow that movement further down, and then to pitch you against something like a Lagiacrus who can move through water like, you know, a seafaring creature would be able to, like a fish or anything else.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of felt at a disadvantage, but I think it made some of the things more fun, especially hitting Lagiacrus' back crystals. Like, you can't do that very well unless you knock him over now.
Yeah.
It gave you a third dimension to the fight because you could now hit areas you wouldn't be able to before.
Yeah, I mean,
But aside from that, it really just didn't pan out. I don't think I even know what happens when you run out of breath in the game. I don't think it ever happened.
Your health
Like,
slowly
I don't know
starts
why.
to decrease, and you hear a little ping
Yeah,
noise
your health
like
slowly
a sonar.
depletes, and then you die.
Yep.
It goes, bwee, bwee, bwee,
They were
bwee.
very generous with the oxygen, like Gog talking about reverse
Yeah.
mermaids.
Yeah,
The
when
Moga
the
hunters were
alarm went off,
practically
you still had
mermaids.
like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you had a full minute.
Yeah, the crazy thing is, though, that, like, they were so cool monster designs because of that, too. I'm really sad to see Goble go, because Goble, I want to see what an adult Goble is so bad.
Yeah,
I just want to see it.
I've heard you guys mention this on previous podcasts, and just to expand on that for anybody who doesn't know, that there was I think a Monster Hunter art book that said that the Goble you fight in the third generation is the juvenile or baby form
Is
of a
a
larger
juvenile.
monster that, like, lives in the deep ocean that nobody has ever seen.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep. And it's like, I really want to see that. Like, if I were to see, like, any sort of design unrealized, that I think it's the adult Goble. So, what do you guys have to say about the water?
I think that the best way to explain it, in my opinion, is that every generation had a gimmick, and the gimmick of the fourth generation is mounting, and the gimmick of the third generation is swimming. I wouldn't present it as like a pro or a con. I liked it for the most part, but I feel like the big weakness of it is that when you're facing up against a monster, you don't have the grass and the ground below you to show the distance from you to the monster. And I think that's what made it confusing, is that you couldn't accurately gauge how far away you were. So, like, floating in the air near to a small monster would look the same as floating further away in the air from a gold crown version of that same monster, and it made it very difficult to, like, know how to time your hits. And like I kind of cheated in this because I was playing as a lance, so I just guarded Vance until I was in the monster's armpit, and then I'd stab him till he died. But I think that was the weakness of swimming, was just the difficulty to gauge distance in the third dimension. Other than that, it was great, and probably other than getting trapped by a Legiacrus in the small area of the flooded forest and being hip checked against a bank.
Oh, exactly.
But I mean, I love the Cedius fight. Like the big 3D arenas, I thought were a lot of fun. But it's just that distance gauging that was too much, and like I can't think of a way they could fix that without putting in like a really on Monster Hunter like heads up display or like grid of every area of it, and that would just look bad. So I guess I mean that is a big weakness, and like mounting doesn't have a similar big weakness. So I guess it's just their 3U's kind of gimmick.
Right.
It's actually surprising to me to hear you say that you liked Cedius's fight. I'm actually curious why.
I guess.
Like, I know you said because of the large area. But...
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the big monsters largely because, like, there's so little of them that you can hit, but, like, for Cedius, you can kind of choose where to go, and, like, you can hit him in different bits. You can break the beard, you can break the horn. If you break the horn off, you can carve it, which is cool. And then scattered around the place, there's, like... there's places, there's Bastillas, or however you pronounce that, and then there's places you can get the Bastilla ammo, and then there's a Dragonator that you can sort of lure him around. So you have a lot of three-dimensional movement that you can do. I'm making swirling motions with my hands that nobody can see. I just thought I'd mention that. Yeah, I think my issues with large monsters are somewhat negated by the ability to move in 3 dimensions. So like Cedius was like a sweet overlap of like a thing I kind of don't like and a thing I kind of don't like, but the overlap was like, no, this is cool. I like this. This is fun.
Yeah.
Plus,
I definitely.
Plus, I think part of that fight is that he's massive in comparison to some of the other guys you're going to fight in the water. So,
yeah,
gauging your distance and being spatially aware you're not as worried about that with him, because I actually would have to say that was probably one of the few fights I enjoyed. That I did like the Goble. I did like fighting the Goble. I had a pretty good time with those 2 guys in the water. Everybody else, I would prefer to fight them on land. I tried whatever I could to get them to come to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I would mark on my
Goble,
calendar.
every time you went and got that frog.
I would mark on my calendar when the event would come up where you got to fight Legiacrus on land, because it made him so much easier.
Exactly.
Even though you had to fight him in an arena with a Rathalos, like him having a Rathalos was less difficult than him having water.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember one of the things. So Hammer really isn't that bad underwater, which was nice.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really until 3 Ultimate where I really felt safe, which is when I started using Gunlance. This was at the point where I was like, Lance is boring. I like Gunlance because it explodes. And Gunlance felt really good in that game. I really liked the ability to, move around underwater. It was very maneuverable with the kind of forward charging upswing.
Yeah.
Especially underwater, just everything was faster. Everything, like, you could just move out of every attack. It was very, very nice. And like I remember times where, like, I could fight Legiacrus with a hammer. It was like one of the first actual sets I made in Tri when I was younger. Before I even got 3 Ultimate, I learned how to fight him. It was terrifying, but I learned. And like that was after going through Tri and experiencing Royal Ludroth, which is crazy because at first, he's a big banana thing. That's what it looks like to me. And I'm like, huh, this is cool. And I fight him a little bit. He jumps in the water. You get down in there. He's got these big freaky glowing eyes, and he just trashes you. And that was honestly terrifying to me. And then I went back in 3U, and I had my Gunlance. You'd poke at him a lot, you'd slash at him, he'd tip over, and you blast him with Wyvern Fire. The whole time you just felt powerful. You just felt super maneuverable, and I really liked it. Cool. So that's why I like the water.
Well, I mean, I think that wraps that up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So, from Tri, although we did not see this happen, we did not get to see this game in the U.S.
Oh, sorry, Fortuan.
Portable Third came out.
Sorry, just before we go on from Tri, I just had a quick list of things I wanted to run through that were only in this game.
Okay.
So this game is the one that had EU and North American servers segregated, so we couldn't have even played together back in those days had we known each other. It also had a feature I loved, which was the hunter notes. I'm not sure what it was actually called, but I kind of called it the chopping list. But if you were in the blacksmith and you needed a monster part, you could point the Wii Remote at the screen and drag that monster part into your notes, and the game would record a record of the fact that you wanted that part for that weapon, how many you had.
I do remember that.
And if you gathered that item in a quest, it would play a distinctive, unique noise to let you know you got it. I thought that was amazing.
I do remember that.
That is also what
that
you
was
did instead of
amazing.
buying hunter notes. You had to go up to the menu, grab the monster, and shove it into your notes.
Yeah, that was just kind of silly. Like, hey, let's do some motion control. But I loved the list. I thought the list was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very weird to run up to a monster and have to clarify what it was. Right? Looking at it with your remote while you're trying to survive.
Yeah, very D&D-esque. You don't know what it is till you see it.
Yep. Yeah. Every time I ran in, it would be like, okay, I need to look at it with my remote. Okay, I've done that. Now I need to paintball it. Okay, now what do I have to do? Oh yeah, I have to get my weapons out. Oh yeah, now I have to take my cold drink because I forgot to do that and I'm dying. Oh yeah, it's Barioth and it's already tackled me 50 billion times and I'm fainted.
Yeah.
Because Barioth in that game, another thing, Barioth didn't have a lot of the idols it had after combos in 3U. There were a whole bunch that were added in 3U purely because his combos went on forever sometimes.
Yeah. I do hear a lot of people say that they thought the Tri-Barroth was harder than the 3U one.
And again, he also had more health, so that didn't help either.
Another thing Tri had was you could get multiple house upgrades, which you could decorate with furniture, and because of the online architecture, people could come and visit you in your house, which is a thing I don't think we've seen since. Also,
I don't believe you could.
Pardon?
In 3U. I don't believe you could in 3U.
No, I'm saying in Tri you can.
Said that.
It never came back.
Yeah, in 3U you could design your house, but they couldn't see it.
Yeah, nobody could come see it, and I don't think you could upgrade it either to be like, a bigger house and then randomly a gigantic coastal mansion.
Nope, you could not.
One thing that was introduced in Tri was talismans, which we already talked about, and the birth of the auto guard talisman, which I think is actually really cool. In Tri as well, there wasn't...
I mean, for Gunlance, it was great.
Yeah.
I could shell without worrying.
We'll probably get to that in the portable third one, but in this game as well, they hadn't refined down the skill system where 10 points automatically equaled a skill. So in Tri, you needed 15 points to get handicraft, and anything below 15 didn't do anything. Which, when you're trying to explain to people how...
I think handicraft was still 15 and 4, wasn't it?
No, it was. I think it was changed to 10 and 3.
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Now,
sorry?
I was going to say, were familiars added in Tri?
Yeah, no. So, the Felynes were the first iteration, and they were introduced to, you get 1 in Freedom Unite.
Okay.
Then you got Shakalaka.
Cha-cha.
Cha-cha.
Yeah,
he was a Shakalaka, which was a weird, obscure monster to fight in Freedom Ultimate.
Yep. He had a spit. He basically had a well done steak.
He had a
roaster.
barbecue hat. That's the King Shakalaka. He had a barbecue spit for a hat.
Wasn't he like human sized? And it was really
no,
weird?
he was not. He was half of a human size.
Yeah.
What?
He was smaller
Oh my
than you.
goodness.
He's a halfling.
I remember the difficulty with him was
but,
that he did incredibly high damage, but almost no knockback. So he'd kind of hit you once, you'd lose 60% of your health, and you wouldn't move, and then he'd just hit you immediately again, and you're dead. And you're like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah, and then he would light you on fire with his barbecues. He was tough, but no. So like you got the different system with Cha-Cha, which actually I really don't like Cha-Cha. Like,
The hell is wrong with you?
Strongly disagree.
because the cats are better by far.
Fortuan, I think
The-
you are
the
actually
moment I-
me on opposite day.
I liked the Shakalaka UI better. Honestly.
Yes, I did. I did too.
The UI?
Not the UI, the AI.
Oh.
Sorry. I liked the way you could customize them. I thought was really cool. The way that they had the music, which were like their buffs, which were kind of like the hunting horn, mixed with your ability to give them the different helmets, which was really cool, especially with the masks, which is really cool, especially with like the cannon one. That thing could kill a low rank Arzuros, which was beautiful.
Well, the reason why I like the cats, you can dress up the cats. The cats also, you can have 2, which you could eventually in 3U. And you couldn't in Freedom Ultimate, so that wasn't a thing until recently. You could have 2. But also, you get to give them their weapons, and you get to customize their skills now. So you can have healing skills and all that kind of stuff, just as much as you could just give a Cha-Cha a mask.
Mm-hmm.
You can customize the Cha-Chas pretty nicely as well, but I mean, I don't like the Felynes as companions for the same reason I don't like Yankaku as a monster. Like, at least the Shakalak is like, okay, it's kind of a weird goblin dwarf thing, and it has a head, but you never see the head, and it wears all these different masks. It's super good. Like, the design meeting for the Felynes were like, okay, it's a cat, and let's break for lunch. Good job, guys. Like,
how dare you?
Make a cat.
That is like a Monster Hunter staple.
Just because I love Monster Hunter. I think it's one of my favorite game series of all time. It is not perfect by any means, and Felynes as companions are just lazy. It's a cat, and it's standing up, and that's all it is. I am so sad that Chaka never came back, because Felynes are garbage. I'm sure we can all agree.
No.
I'll have to second that. I did want the return of Cha-Cha.
Bcubed is my man.
The Shakalakas weird me out. Probably because I encountered them before they were a thing in the 3rd generation.
Oh yeah, where they were enemies.
Yeah, and it's like, no. I don't want that. Go away. I like the cats. I don't know. I like.
Well, then how do you think I felt when I had to fight Malinks all the time and they were annoying, and then I got a cat and I was like, all these things are assholes to me. Why do I want to? Like,
I mean, that's
exactly how you were with Shakalakas.
I think we really need to cut back on the sweeping generalizations here. Okay, all right. Not all cats are Malinks. All right.
I know. Then there's the normal felines, but they're still mean. So
yeah, that's how I feel when I saw
if you smacked a Malinks next to them, they're like, well, F you, buddy, and then they attack you too.
If someone smacks your friend with a giant hammer, do you think you're just gonna let that slide?
But it was a Malinks. It was the other ones that were mean.
You're
it was
saying,
still like all with it.
Gog, I think we need to have a sit down. You're really just like you're not being really sensitive to the cat
Felyneist?
Yeah.
Am I Felyneist?
Yes, you're being very Felyneist.
I don't think we can hammer this down.
Are you saying that black and white cats can't be friends?
You're saying that all Shakalakas are bad just because you didn't like one.
I said they were disgusting. I didn't say bad.
We can't.
That's a whole other thing.
We can't decide this decisively. Oh, sorry. Go on, Bcubed.
For me, it was like those same felines were robbing me and blowing me up.
We didn't hear what you said.
And now they want to be my friend. It just didn't work for me.
Something happened.
I wanted to play with
I don't know.
I'm just going to say that we can't decide this decisively, for the history of Monster Hunter going in all directions. But on a podcast where there's 4 people and 3 of them say one thing and Fortuan is wrong, I think we've come to a consensus.
Ooh. Yes. He's quiet
now. I'm quiet because I'm trying to think how to respond. It's
okay. I think we should move on. Yeah. I think we should say Poogies are confirmed, and let's just be happy.
You know what?
Let's move on and be happy together. No Felynism, no Shakalakalism. I don't know how to say that. No.
Yeah, I don't think you could definitively say either one is better.
No Moofism. No Poogism. Poogieism. Whatever you want to call it.
Alright. So.
Him or her or it or whatever they want to be called.
Moving on. So Portable Third, which is it's kind of hard to describe for people who don't know, but when Tri came out, they didn't immediately end the PSP line of games. They did sort of a side upgrade inside of the 3rd generation called Portable Third. and it was like third generation, except
But they were trying
not.
to fix things.
Well, I don't think they were.
They
trying
brought
to
back weapons that were missing in Tri, like the dual blades, the hunting horn, the gun lance, and they
And the
also
bow.
they removed water because people didn't like it. They also had
No. You're that is straight up wrong. They didn't have water because the PSP couldn't handle it.
Oh, I thought they did it after because they didn't. Oh, okay.
They were the PSP was like, no, we can't. We're maxing it out at this point.
I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, so they.
I mean, it
redesigned
probably didn't help that the
maps
game
to
was.
fit. No, they didn't. If they were taking out the water, they wouldn't have had it in 3 Ultimate.
No, I was saying that it it doesn't surprise me just because of that, but also because they had the ability to upscale the game to HD for the PS3.
Yeah, no,
So
they
were
didn't
definitely
change.
focused on.
They didn't
something
change
else,
anything when it came to
Yeah.
the PS3 version. So I think I'm the only one here that played Portable Third, right?
Well, I did. I dabbled.
Okay.
I did.
Well, I did
not.
do all the village at least.
Mm-hmm.
I beat Amatsu. Yeah, what's his
Amatsu,
name?
yep.
Yeah.
Amatsu.
So I did beat him, and I did play a little bit of online, offline, basically the online mode by myself. So I did play a bit of it, but it's the first game that I had to import, and it was fully in Japanese. I did import 2G, which is Freedom Ultimate, but I did use a battery to translate that. And I'm sure we'll get into that whole spiel with the Generation 2 talk. But Portable Third actually was the first time that you saw Zinogre. So Zinogre was the big sort of deal. And Portable Third is also where you see in Generations the, I don't remember the name of the village, but the Japanese-inspired one that Mitsume
Yukomo.
lives in. Yeah, Yukomo Village.
It was also... Sorry.
That starter armor is my favorite. The very colorful rice hat.
Yukomo armor is beautiful.
Yeah, it is my favorite starting armor set of any of Monster Hunter so far. It's just
I also
so
like the
cool.
hammer they give you. It's a drum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a very different feel to the game. It was very focused on the Japanese sort of aesthetic versus their own aesthetic that they've been doing in Monster Hunter. So it was a really unique game at the time, like a lot of cherry trees and that kind of stuff that you see in Japan. So Zinogre was unique. Amatsu was unique in that. There was a couple of unique monsters, but they did, as we did mention, they did take out the water, and it was strange because you can actually see those maps that were in Portable Third in Generations. Because there isn't swimming. So the deserted island, the way that is now in Generations and Double Cross is what it was in Portable Third.
Yeah,
so
it didn't
straight
go
up
out
couldn't
into the full water areas.
Yeah, you just straight up couldn't go to there. Another thing is the flooded forest wasn't flooded. It was ankle deep water across everything. Which
you could go to all the different areas, correct?
Yeah, you could. It was just drained.
Oh, that's cool.
And it made it a very different map. Now, here's the thing. Flooded Forest, even though it is underwater and that kind of stuff, it, to me, is the coolest looking map in the whole history of Monster Hunter, for me personally. And that's with water. Without water, it's very different. It's still cool, but it's very different. You don't get that sort of I really like that sort of underwater, freshwater aesthetic that you get for those essentially bad areas transitioning into the cave. But if you pop up above the water and look, it's like this beautiful, lush jungle around you. You don't even notice. You do get to see that sort of just grandness when it is drained in those areas. And it's really weird. Another thing is the Slagoth. The giant sort of jowled herbivores were unique to Portable Third also.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And then they went on to 4 Ultimate and 4 and Generations.
Yeah, so there was a lot of things slightly different with the game, But
Another
aside from
really
the
big-
new monsters, and Zinogre was a huge one. Zinogre, everyone loves Zinogre. He's a cool fight.
Yeah.
He
Another really big thing. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say he's very very iconic monster for having like roots in a game that we didn't even get. Now we did get him in 3 Ultimate later on, which was I was excited for people to be able to fight him. But it was sort of like a very self-contained game, and there was a lot of problems that it had. Not only with part of the problem is it didn't get localized because of all this crazy online infrastructure stuff with Sony and that kind of stuff, and so it just sort of fell through. And then up until Monster Hunter World, that was the last time we saw it on a Sony system.
Another really big thing that I wanted to say was also that it had subspecies, which is very unique for this game not being an ultimate version of another game. I'm pretty sure Portable Second basically had the subspecies thing. Am I
What
correct
are
in
you
saying
doing?
that?
Freedom Unite?
No, would that be considered Portable Second?
Portable Second.
Or
You know,
was
I don't know if
Was
Freedom
it G that had the first subspecies?
I didn't think there's
No.
a hard and fast rule
I
with
mean,
subspecies.
yes, the original G.
Just mostly that monsters don't tend to have subspecies in the same game they appear in, except for Glavenus.
Yeah. Whereas in Portable Third, Stygian Zinogre existed when Zinogre was introduced, which was a huge thing. I think they also did. I think they had. Trying to think. I mean, they had Purple Royal Ludroth. They had a fair amount of monsters that were from Tri that also had subspecies alternatives, which was interesting.
The big butt
It was almost like
mini
it
bosses
was-
were introduced, Lagambi, Azuros, and Volvodon.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know what they're
Tigrex
called.
was in the game. Brute Tigrex was in the game.
Durambros, I think, as well.
There was a very nice, well-rounded roster, which was very unique at the time, anyway.
One thing mechanically I thought was interesting about that game is that that is the one game, I think, where the Autoguard Talisman was considered to be widely useful, because for some weird reason, even though Autoguard is only supposed to normally proc when you're idle walking or idle standing, it could proc during the recovery of a Gunlance shell, which meant if you had Autoguard Talisman on and you were a Gunlancer, which I'm sure God can speak to in greater detail, that apparently it was, like having guard points or lance counters.
Yeah, it was very interesting. It's like, oh, something's going to attack me, I'm just going to shell. It was very cool, because shelling has almost no, startup. It's just kind of, and that's it. You hit the button, your shell explodes. I'm pretty sure that still existed a little bit in Tri. I think it actually was still a thing in Tri.
It would be hard for it to be a thing in Tri without Gunlance being in Tri.
That's true. It might have been 3U that I'm thinking of. Or it might have been specifically 3rd, but
I'm pretty sure it was only in
I
fourth or
remember
third.
it was only in 3rd? Okay.
Yeah.
Well then, I do remember it for the few times that I used Gunlance in that. I swear, I tried to do it in 3 Ultimate. That might have been why I got confused about it. But, yeah, it's a very cool thing to do. It's really useful. Because I hadn't been able to... I think I might... Yeah, I used Brave Gunlance before I tried Portable Third. So, the ability to guard point was so cool with that weapon. With the full reload and stuff. And going back to that game, which was much older, you didn't have all the styles, you didn't have arts, you didn't even have the ability to hop off a ledge. I mean, you could, but it was like slow recovery, it was very slow, you climbed slow. The game felt very slow, but the ability to shell as a block was crazy.
Okay, so I just looked it up. There was no Stygian Zinogre in Portable Third.
What am I talking about then? I'm getting so much wrong right now.
I thought you were saying that
there
it was
were
introduced in
subspecies.
3U, and it was like the first Western one, so it was weird for the West.
Yeah,
Great
yeah,
Stadium were introduced at the same time. I assume that's what you.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, he was in 3U, and I was like, I'm pretty sure 3U was his first appearance. It's also something to note that Nibelsnarf was the first appearance of him also.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, but he was called whatever he's called in Japanese. It just starts with an H. But all of that aside, I don't think Portable Third had a lot to note, at least especially for us here. It did introduce some more iconic monsters like Zinogre. And it was the first time that we did see variants for the third generation, but we didn't really, we basically everything that you saw in 3 Ultimate, as far as like subspecies go, aside from Stygia and Zinogre, did appear in Portable Third. So the Jade Baroth, that kind of stuff. I'm not seeing, which is weird. I'll have to look at it again. Not seeing Savage Devil Joe or anything like that either.
I am not sure if Savage was in that game.
No,
I think that might have been introduced in 3 Ultimate.
Yeah, and also I'm actually not seeing Devil Joe on that list.
No, Devil Joe
he's
was
in that game. Yeah, he's in that game.
Portable Third?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know he was.
I would assume he is. Maybe this list doesn't include him.
I remember horrifiedly watching videos of really bad players being able to solo Devil Joe and thinking, what has the world come to?
Devil Joe was in Try for sure. But
he was in Try, but he was also in Third though.
Yeah, you had like Urgan and Steel Urgan and I think Portable Third. Like
Steel
and Glacier.
Yeah, he was definitely there.
And Glacier, Ignactor.
Yeah, I think Glacial Ignactor was in there.
Yeah.
I can't remember. This is a lot of us going, was this in there? Maybe.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
that's the problem. It was a Japanese release that I played in Japanese to about halfway through the game.
Yeah, in all honesty, I might end up cutting out a lot of this just to be able to say the overall thing that is, like, I'll use a lot of this conversation, but I feel like a lot of it can be taken out to basically say, we're not sure about a lot of it, but we did play some of it.
Yeah, Devil Joe was there. He wasn't in that initial list. Mm-hmm. That's all. So another thing. For me, I think Portable Third. That's about it. Aside from mentioning that it was, it didn't end on the PSP. It did. Portable Third did get a PS3 HD upgrade, which at the time was the first. No, I don't know. I don't know if 3U came out before the HD upgrade or not.
I believe 3 Ultimate was after, because there was a very large hiatus between Try and 3 Ultimate.
It probably did come out to PS3 before 3U came out to the Wii U.
It definitely did.
So it would be the first HD Monster Hunter game. Which, that's how I played it. So I imported the PS3 version because PS3 was not region locked. And so that's how I played it. And it looks good. It looked pretty good for the time. But you have to understand it was upscaled from a PSP game, so not everything looked great.
I mean, I played it in 60 FPS and HD, and I thought it was absolutely beautiful. But that's
a total different environment. So if you're emulating it, that's a total different way.
Oh yeah, that was an HD. Yeah, it was being put into a computer and looked nice. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, it's entirely handled entirely different. But with that hiatus of sort of this weird sort of like side upgrade in the series, then we get the massive update that it was 3 Ultimate. And 3 Ultimate not just brought in some new monsters like the Brachydius and that kind of stuff, but we now had every single weapon up to that point added into it. We didn't mention in Try was the first time you saw the Switch Axe. So you had all 14, right? 14.
Yep.
weapons
No,
that
this
point?
was not including the. So
The
Try
number
had
gets mixed up in my
11
head.
weapons.
Mhm.
3, you had 12.
I think because they had the medium. Oh, it was 12 because the medium bowgun existed.
Yeah, it was the
Um,
max up until 14 is what
3
we have
ultimate.
now. 12
3
is what
ultimate.
they
It
have.
was 11. Oh no! It was. Oh no! Try it was much less because it was also missing the deal blades and the gun lance and the hunting horn. So that means that there was a lot less weapons. Because there was 9 weapons. I don't know. Anyway, there was definitely there were multiple weapons removed in Try, but they did add the switch axe. They also had the medium bowgun in 3U and in portable third. The ability to have a medium bowgun no longer existed, and they had added back in the dual blades, the gun lance, and the hunting horn for a total of 12 weapons.
Yeah, for anybody who doesn't know,
Um,
the gunning system in Try was crazy complicated, and you had to assemble your own bowguns
Yes.
while walking up a hill each way to go to school in your bare feet, and each individual piece
Yeah.
had to be individually upgraded, and each one had different weapon loads and recoils and different ranges, and I actually bowgunned quite a
Long
bit in
story
Try.
short, bowgunning.
Bowgunning,
Long story short, bowgunning in Try was not the funnest thing, or most fun thing, and medium bowgunning was unheard of and stupid.
I mean, if I can say a
Yeah.
statement I think nobody's going to have any issue with, is that if you scrubs think that bowgunning is hard now, you have no idea what you missed.
hmm Especially World, the improvements they've made on it are crazy, in my opinion.
Yeah, as an
The ability
OG,
to move, being part of that, that's almost sad how that's such an advancement for us.
I would say as an OG bowgunner from Gen 1, no one has any idea. So it's important to note that there was technically only 10 weapons in the Try, because bowgun is treated as one. It was just whether you were light, medium, or heavy. So yeah, it was just great sword, sword and shield, hammer, lance, switch axe, longsword, and then bowgun. And then bowgun was just acted differently depending on the weight. So there's that. So 3 ultimate brought everything back. So we were at the full 12 at that point.
Yeah, because it brought the last 3 weapons back, and it split bowgun back up to heavy and light.
No.
What? Wait, why am I... Really?
I'm pretty sure. No, it did. You're right.
Yeah, it split them up into both. Yeah.
So we got rid of medium.
Yeah, bowgunning went from being a doctoral
I was like, I
thesis
can't be
to
wrong
just
about
being
this,
2
can I?
weapons.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, back to the original way. And bow coming back too, which was nice.
Oh, yes, there was another one that was missing.
So 3 ultimate not only brought back the weapons, but like I said, we got the different monsters. We got a lot more large monsters. And at this point, it was the most large monsters in the series. Not only because we got some, but we actually got some new variants. I call them variants, but subspecies also. For instance, the Lucent Narga, the Abyssal Lagicris, stuff like
Stygian
that.
Zinogre.
Yeah, I do believe the Rustarambrose was new for this one.
Yep.
Savage Devil Joe. All sorts of stuff. So there was a lot more quests, and that comes with G rank, which was the first time you guys would have saw G rank being 3rd geners. Aside from ShadyHItchhiker here, who did play in Freedom Unite. That had G rank also. So G rank has always been sort of a big deal. If no one knows what that is, you have low rank quests, high rank quests, and G rank is the 3rd tier of quests. Bcubed, I know that you had barely got into G rank before we stopped playing 3U. I know you got there, but I know that we didn't play too much into it.
Yep.
So basically, 3U was like the bigger, badder, and better try. But it just had a lot more content, which I think really saved the game for me, which made 3U to that point my favorite series game in the series. It brought it back for me. I would say that like I didn't really count Portable Third since it wasn't a US release, and I didn't really care for Portable Third more or less than I did for Try. But I also didn't finish Portable Third, so there's that. It was... we also got Goldbeard Ceodus. I forgot about that one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which
Diamorales.
and Dire Morales.
They did get rid of Amatsu from Third. They never brought him over for the new game.
Well, technically they didn't get rid of him. It's
but they didn't bring him over.
Yeah, they didn't bring him over.
Yeah.
We did get the slag off, though. We got basically everything but Amatsu. It was a fun time. It was an interesting environment because it was announced that it was going to come out for the Wii U before the Wii U launched. So like when I went to go get my Wii U, and people were asking me like, "Well, why are you getting a Wii U?" And I said, "Well, I'm getting a Wii U for Zombie U. I'm getting it for Mario, and I'm getting it for the inevitable Smash Brothers and Monster Hunter." And people are like, "You're getting it for what was that last one? Monster Hunter." It's like I was at a GameStop trying to pre-order Monster Hunter, and they're like, "What is that?" I'm like, "Just go in your computer, write me down for it. I know it's there." And it's like, "Nah, I never heard of that." And I'm like, can I just pre-order it, please? So I pre-ordered it from them. But it didn't have a lot of screen time. Like advertisement as Try did. I don't remember hardly any advertisements for 3U aside from in gaming sites, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Fortunately, Wii U just didn't have the following anyway to really push it along, so that just all kind of sucked. But that doesn't mean like that the advertisements would have been worse. It's just that also didn't help its cause.
Yeah. It's funny to note that we're talking about advertising. So I looked at the wiki just now to just confirm that weapon stuff earlier. And the backdrop, so Wikias always have, like, here's the latest game that we're advertising. It's actually advertising Monster Hunter World right now. So it actually is on theme for once when I'm looking at Monster Hunter stuff. But, I mean, aside from, like, all that stuff that came into 3 Ultimate, I feel like not a lot for that changed. Now, I will say this. During the time of 3 Ultimate being out is when I became a moderator of r/Monster Hunter. So, I was very heavy into the series from the beginning, but this is like when I started paying attention to other people and playing online purposely and that kind of stuff. No one probably remembers this, but I actually started like a, hey, let's play with the mods thing on our Monster Hunter that no one showed up to. Literally.
Oh no.
Yeah.
It's probably due to your
waited,
inferior opinions on Felynes and Kazus and stuff.
No one knew about any of those opinions. But there's it was a time where I was like really, really into the series. I think, gosh, as far as like the Wii U, it was the most I played a game. Now I did play a lot with Bcubed here, my brother and Austin, but at this point I was far enough ahead of them that I was mostly soloing what I was going through at this point. Mm-hmm. Up until then, it was pseudo playing with my brother, but I ended up soloing still towards the end. This one, as like the Abyssal Lagigris, Lucent Narga, all that stuff, it was just me by myself doing it. And this is the last game in which I was a hammer user. So I was a hammer bro from Gen 2 through Gen 3.
And you died on us.
Well,
gave up the cause.
I wanted to cut tails, and for you offered.
You don't need tails for hammers, except for Bracky. But yeah, that's another story.
Yeah, You need tails because you need plates.
Just for bragging.
No,
you
you need
could
plates.
brute force it. You could kill enough Rathalos with a hammer. You can get a plate out of them.
Every percentage counts.
In all honesty, there was a time where I went back to 3 Ultimate for a while because I wanted to get the Azure armor. I'd never actually gotten it before.
Yeah.
And I went back and I was like, F this, I'm gonna use a cutting weapon and cut all these tails. And I was using longsword, I used dual blades, I used switch axe, and I was cutting the tails off left and right. Couldn't get anything. I finally said F this. I used a hammer, and I got this was high rank, so I got 2 gems, Wrath gems, and then a 3rd Azure gem in the awards with no tail. And I was like, I'm good. I feel good about this. And that was kind of what let me be okay with using a hammer. I love the ability that it has to exhaust and KO things. Unfortunately, in Double Cross and Generations, that's, much less useful due to hyper monsters, and in Double Cross, everything just being so overpowered in resistance to it and the positioning of their heads, but that's a whole nother thing.
One big thing, I don't know if you know, Gog, is that in Monster Hunter Tri, the stun value that you did to Monster's head was multiplied by your weapon sharpness. So purple sharpness in Tri was broken as all hell. And then when you come into 3U and you start hammer after using Tri, you're like, wow, hammer's got bad.
I'm really excited to use hammer in World, but again, focused on Gen 3. Well, I don't know.
Are we focused, though? Are we focused?
I don't think we are.
I don't know. I think we're pretty focused, aside from the feline hate.
I did want to say, I looked behind the curtain. I can't remember who said it to me, but when I was leaving Nintendo, I think it was before the 3DS launched, someone in Nintendo told me that if I really liked Monster Hunter, which I had been talking about that I really did, that I should pick up a 3DS because that the next Monster Hunter game would be on the 3DS pretty soon, within the little bit of time after the 3DS launched. For anybody who doesn't know, the 3DS launched in Europe March of 2011. Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate released March of 2013. I can't remember who that person was, but they were not telling me the truth. I bought a console for a game that I did not have on that console for the next 2 years.
For 2 years.
Almost.
I mean, yeah, people do that all the time, though. I mean, everyone bought PS4s for games, and you didn't have anything for 2 years, so.
Yeah, but you didn't have a company insider telling you that it was a good time to make a purchase.
That's also true.
But I also didn't buy it at launch either. I waited that 2 years.
I had a Circle
PlayStation.
Pad Pro that I bought for cheap in a supermarket because they were selling them. I think it was about a year before 3 Ultimate came out, and I kept it in a box for a year until that game came out because I had nothing else to play it on. But I remember a big thing for me was when they released the 3 Ultimate demo on 3DS. I was like, oh, thank God, finally. I've been waiting for this game for so long. Like, the gap between Tri and 3 Ultimate.
Blew the dust off your 3DS.
Oh, I love the 3DS. I played it a lot, but I mean, I bought it as a Monster Hunter machine, and I didn't have Monster Hunter. But I downloaded that demo, and I was so happy to see all the weapons from Freedom Unite in an actually good game. I played the hell out of that demo. I can link it to you in the chat, but I actually made myself a little spreadsheet to track if I could, because there was 2 demo monsters. There was the Lagombi and there was the Plesioth, and you couldn't really access the menus in the demo, but you got notices for how much time was left as the quest time was ticking down. So I tried to beat it within the best time with every single weapon, and my first impression from the demo, having used all the weapons from Freedom Unite, was holy crap. Hunting Horn is brokenly good now, because I don't know if Fortuan did much hunting horning back in Freedom Unite, but that was a garbage, awfully implemented weapon. So bad.
It was.
Yeah, I did, because a lot of people were like, "Oh, it KO's better," and I'm like, "So, there's got 2 moves."
Yeah, luckily later they gave it more They gave it more strength, motion value wise compared to the hammer. Like, overall, it had moves that were a little bit stronger. But then you had the hammer with its, first single pound, and then the Gulf Swing and its charged moves that really helped it along in that case.
I was purely talking about the song
Yeah,
mechanic, because in Freedom Unite you basically had to go into a stance, so you'd be running around and then you'd go stance, and you'd be like stance, 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 first note, stance, 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 second note, stance, 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 third note, and then, if you weren't already dead, you go stance, 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 play song, get the buffs. So I went into the 3 Ultimate demo, I swung the weapon, I got a note, and I was like, oh my god, this changes everything. This is going to be the most brokenly good sound of all time. And then nobody used it.
Yeah. It's sad, too, because I think it is a really well-rounded weapon overall. I think it's a really good weapon.
I have it on good authority.
When people were like...
Oh, sorry, go
on. When people were like, oh, it didn't gain anything in World, I was like, the fact that you can store recitals is honestly broken because the weapon is so well rounded. I think it's a really well designed weapon overall with the way that its hitboxes are on its movement. I think it is much better at KOing compared to the hammer's hitboxes, honestly.
And I thought it would see more play in parties. I thought for party play, if you're going to play with friends and whatnot, I mean, the buffs for the group would be great.
When I was trying to make the Steel Uragan armor and try 3 Ultimate, I remember getting the ability to make Steel Uragan's hammer and then using that to basically destroy Steel Uragan to the point that I got all the pieces I needed, like the gem, so I could make his full armor for gun lancing. Because just the way that you could swing the backswing was completely broken because of the amount of KO it had, so it was really useful because you could just turn, you could spam it over and over again at his chin, and once he broke his chin, it was all over for him because you could just keep KOing and KOing.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we should get into the world speak at the end real quick, just because I feel like we focused a lot on this.
There wasn't anything else you wanted to say about 3U, Deadeye, or Bcubed?
I was just curious, since we're talking about 3U, what were everybody's least favorite monster?
Banabra?
It's a close tie. It's a close tie between Cedius and what was his name? Baleful Giganox. Because Baleful Giganox was just annoying because of the paralysis, and then Cedius to me was really boring and slow, so I didn't like fighting.
Now, are you talking specifically large monsters?
Large monsters. We're going with the large monsters.
All right. I don't know. I don't like Volvidon that much.
What the hell is wrong with you? I call him Volvidon, by the way.
Not that, like I said, I still stand by the fact that I love every monster. I think Volvidon though is I like him, but he's too easy. That's my biggest problem with him. Is I feel like he needs to have a little bit more health. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but there's a video out there of someone literally shadow boxing between two hunters, shadow boxing a Volvidon back and forth. Have you seen this? You can hit him out of his roll if he's in low enough, or into a roll or something like that. Basically,
he's at a low enough threshold.
You're staggering him with the lowest hit, right? And he's got such a low stagger when he's close to dead or something. I don't know what the situation was, but I think it's one of the mad videos if you've ever seen them. They're literally shadow boxing him back and forth. They're just standing there and he's ping ponging between the two hunters. And it's just like, that is just That is just sad, Volvidon. You really need to pick yourself up.
Volvidon is so annoying, though. He's such a, like, he's just so weird and crazy. All the moves he can do. It's really unexpected. Especially, Generations is the first time you were able to mount him. And if he was enraged, goodbye trying to, like, say goodbye to trying to mount him, because he would constantly, he'll turn his head, and then he'll swing his tongue out, and he'll flip around, and then he'll do the same thing over and over again, and he will not stop. It's almost impossible to mount him when he's enraged. I also think a lot of his moves are just crazy and weird, and it's just awesome. He doesn't even make sense. He's like, oh, I'm kind of a bug thing, and I roll up in a ball, and I crap farts out of my body, and I have a paralysis thing coming out of my throat, and I have a weird tongue, and my stomach's soft, and my back's hard, and I don't know what the heck I am, but I'm here, and I can dig in the ground.
I mean, he's pretty much just an armadillo.
But, like, he's like everything. It's so weird.
It's all an armadillo. I mean,
I don't
maybe
know
the
if I've
tongue.
seen an armadillo with paralysis.
They
and also
carry-
with a gooey
they-
stomach.
They carry leprosy.
Ooh.
That is true.
I was not expecting that to be part of this conversation.
They do. It's
That's crazy.
Wow.
Well,
I'm
on
going to
that note,
Texas here soon. So
That's
wish me
fun.
luck.
Yeah, don't get leprosy. I mean, it's for it now, but still.
Oh man.
Drive safely, don't get leprosy.
So Deadeye, what was your least liked?
I'm
fight.
kind of like you when it comes to loving all monsters, but really only within the specific confines of 3 Ultimate. I just tend to not like the lazy second gen subspecies. So like, you know, Congalala and then Green Congalala, and he's basically the same, and Keizu and then Red Keizu, and he's basically the same. So the only one of those that's really in 3 Ultimate is the Green Nargacuga. He's just kind of
Yeah, that's
the
what I was
same.
gonna say.
Yep.
He's the lazy.
Well,
Yay,
Rust-
double tail whip.
Yeah.
That's it.
Rust Duramboros is pretty much the same too.
Yeah, but Ruster-Amboros was just awesome. Because
Well,
he
he
was
was
just
massive.
bigger.
Yeah.
He was huge.
Yeah, it's like here's a Gravia-sized monster. Here's a subspecies that's bigger. What?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just liked him visually. I think that's why I liked him so much.
Yeah.
It was enough for me.
Rust-Rambros does like have a little bit of that second gen laziness, but I do like it when they take the monsters and they like drastically change the elements. So like, you know, Agnactor to Glacial Agnactor is super cool, and like I like I like Lucent Nargacuga and I like Abyssal Aegiacris, but just the second gen laziness is the stuff I don't like.
The one that surprised me was the Sand Bariath. That one was like, holy crap! There's a giant tornado. What do I do?
Yeah, and they're all moving around and you're freaking out. Like
Yeah.
that, like RNG, that thing would either destroy you or not, just depending on whether you were staying in the right place for the tornadoes to crush you when you're trying to hack at them.
And then though he whips around that tornado and comes at you like a freaking bullet.
Okay.
When you still had tornadoes around.
Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely made you play
All right,
Bullet Hell in the
Bcubed.
desert.
Bcubed, what was yours? We all answered it.
It'd be Giganox.
Okay.
That particular monster, I'm a very aggressive fighter and monster hunter, and having to run from poison and the different explosions. Plus, there was like a creepy factor for me. It was a very creepy looking monster. You couldn't tell head from tail very well.
Yeah,
so.
You do get creeped out by a lot of stuff.
I loved Giganox. I thought he was such a cool fight.
Keeping out the egg sacs.
Oh, it was disgusting. Oh, it was great. And like, I'm a very squeamish person, but like playing through Try and seeing the intro part where you literally have to fight him in the dark in a cave, and all you can see is him glowing. And there's these weird squirmy little worms that pop up and they're grabbing onto you and they have all these teeth. And I remember just being like, this is actually horrifying, and I'm not sure I can play this anymore.
And the baleful one that lays eggs on his own back.
Oh, and it puts it on its back, dude.
Yeah.
Ugh. And then it had the paralysis timer. That was the worst thing. It sat on his back, and you were like, you have fun trying to hack this thing off my back before I paralyze you and then kill you immediately because I'm G rank.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool, though, in how different it made the fight.
It wasn't always G-rank, but still.
It's like someone saw Giganox, and they were like, okay, can we make a good Keizu?
How do we make this worse? I like him more than Kezu, I will say that.
I can't.
Unfortunately for you, Fortuan.
No, I don't mind. Keizu's not one of my favorites.
I know, but you still... I thought you said you liked him more than Giganox, though.
I do.
Oh, okay. That was what I was referring to then.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not, like... The only reason why I don't like him, because he's clearly just a different Kazoo.
Yeah, but he's... I don't know. I think he's much better designed. He's not a flying wyvern. Like, his body is completely different. His body is very unique.
He is a flying wyvern.
No, I meant he's not a... Yeah, he's not like the same skeleton.
Yeah.
Like,
no, I get it.
I would much rather fight him over Kezu, in general, anyway.
He just runs on the walls and the ceiling more than Kazoo did, is all. That's
yeah,
the only difference to me.
A lot of the second-gen monsters that went on the ceiling was like, I'm going to go on the ceiling for a few seconds, I'm going to do something, and then I'm going to fall down. And, whereas Giganox was like, I'm just going to hang from the ceiling and chuck lightning, or not lightning, that's baleful. Chuck purple clouds at you, and then I'm going to get back up, and then I'm going to try to pounce, like, not pounce on you, to, what does he do? Where he like snaked out his neck and he would grab at you.
Yeah, that's his pin.
Yeah, and he would like just put his mouth down on top of you and you would just disappear in his mouth. That was horrifying.
You hope it's his mouth.
I can't do this anymore.
It's his cloaca.
Oh, he's not a winged wyvern. He's a bird wyvern now.
What?
Cloacas, what birds have.
Also sea cucumbers.
That's also true.
So okay.
Let's move on.
Just to sort of end this off, we talk about World a lot, Gog and I do. The last episode was pretty much all about the Rotten Vale trailer.
That's nerding out.
Yeah. So, what are your guys' thoughts on Monster Hunter World? We try not to get into news stuff too often, although the last episode is clearly just news. Just us talking about it.
But it was fun. I don't care.
Yeah. But, so what Bcubed, what do you guys think?
I'll start off with I think from what I've seen and what I've read, there's some welcome changes that are going to make hunting feel even more like hunting.
Okay.
The introduction of the fireflies. When I first saw them, I was a little worried and a little apprehensive about it, but. When you now knowing that you go hunting, you have to find clues and
it's like having 1,000 Navis.
Exactly.
Oh.
Dig through.
Over here. Just all over each other.
Dig through,
it's like,
them, and then Navi will finally lead you to a monster. Actually, it feels a little bit more immersive for me.
Okay.
There's a couple other changes like that I think that'll help out with the whole immersion of being this hunter of monsters. I think that'll be included in this new game, as well as there's a lot of cool looking monsters.
Yeah. I'm never going to get over that EKG meter. I never am.
Why?
It's so annoying.
It's so small though. Like I completely forget about it every single time I watch gameplay. Like unless you're really looking for it. Like, I don't think it's going to bother you gameplay-wise. Like, yourself.
Yeah, I do see it on every video, but I'm just like, okay, I guess I'll try to ignore it. Yeah. But then there's that
and also, I'm pretty sure you can turn it off anyway. Visually.
I think so.
Don't know. I haven't seen anything about turning that off. But
I mean, you can probably do, like, you know how Breath of the Wild kind of has like the simplified versions of the UI, where you just see certain parts? You can probably turn things on and off like that.
Maybe, but if that turns off my health, and at the same time, I'm not going to be happy.
I mean, I hope they don't do it all for one like that. I hope it's kind of customizable,
Yeah.
but we'll see.
I actually did
And then another-
a couple of posts on various forums and probably Reddit in some of the older games where I was arguing that I actually thought they should have a mode where you can see the monster health, because I think the fact that you need to go on to Kirinico and look up the impact, cut, shot, and element weak zones for each monster to really know if you're having any sort of an impact is bad and kind of bad game design. So, and I've always put forward that argument, and like I get downvoted and I get disagreed with to hell, but I mean, if you just had it in a smaller mode or something you could turn off, or some sort of a training room. So like the fact that World shows damage numbers and it has the thing like an EKG, I actually like.
Yeah.
I'm okay with the damage numbers. That's not a problem with me. It's the EKG. By the way, there is a way to tell if you're hitting the right spots.
Yeah,
And,
the blood spurts are larger or smaller.
well, and it's not just that. It's the resistance of when the weapon hits. So the harder
Oh, yeah,
the hit, the longer it takes the weapon to go through. And you can feel it. I was going to say that like I felt like the biggest resistance, like the most critical hit I have ever done today, when I was fighting a Narga Kuga today in a double cross, and I'd use the energy blade, the hunter art, and I hit him like at the very tip of it with like a full file expenditure. And it hit him, and the screen. I felt like it was a full second that it stopped. It was like,
Well, yeah, with the energy blade, it always does that when you connect. So it's really cool when you, like when I run around after a fight and I find a group of Jaggies with it, you can literally like lag for 3 seconds because it goes.
yeah,
It's
Yeah.
really cool.
But yeah, so you can actually tell when you're hitting the right spot with the right kind of weapon based on that resistance, based on the feel of the weapon hitting. It's obscure, yeah, but it's there. So because of that, personally, I have never looked at Kirinico at all. I have never been to that site for any monster to look up how to do it or anything. Not in my entire 13 years of playing Monster Hunter.
Oh no, I don't look up the hit, like the spots that I should hit the most. I usually, what I do, I'll look up like the parts and stuff like that. That's mainly what I use. I usually do that so I can find parts, so I can make the armor and the weapons and stuff. But the actual weak points, I always actually go in the game and I figure those things out, which is kind of funny. I'm actually really happy though. The fact that they are letting you with the scout flies, as you gain more information about the monster, you get, the places that you want to hit the monster and stuff like that. And as you upgrade the scout flies after fighting something more and more and more, now you don't need to hunt the monster. Now you know exactly where it's going to be because it's in this area that you've hunted it before. Now you're at level 3, so now it's just tracked continuously. The scout flies don't come out, you just have a marker on your map, and that's how you know where it is. And it's very cool that they're giving you that ability to be like, hey, here's your reward because you are a veteran hunter, you know how to fight this monster. And I think that's really cool. It's like a development.
I could be wrong, but I think you're mixing up your terminology there. The scout flies upgrading are just colors, and they exist within that particular quest, right?
So,
but the hunter notes are what get upgraded, not the scout.
Yeah,
flies.
well, there's two things. I don't remember what video this was in. I think it was in one of Eric's videos. And
he goes into it very in depth.
Yeah, he discusses that, which is a big thing. Where in the notes, now you can see spots to hit the monster, how much damage it does.
Yeah.
And then he also talked about how there is, as you hunt the monster more, you have a gauge that you fill, not just in that single quest, but as an overarching thing.
With the scout flies?
Yes, where it upgrades the scout flies to the point that, if you've hunted this one a lot, now you don't need to search for those footprints anymore. You know where it's going to be. you where you don't really know exactly where it is, but your scout flies will lead you directly towards it. And then at the level 3, it is marked on your map.
Huh.
Yeah, that was.
I did not see that at all, and I watched that video.
I mean, it might have been in a separate video where he discussed specifically that. And I
Okay.
could be wrong, and it could be a single quest, and maybe I misread it, so we'll see. There's a lot of things that we honestly don't know 100% for sure in this game, and that's kind of one of the... what makes it harder to discuss, you know?
Sure.
And I think that the use of environment is going to be really interesting inside this game. Being able to lure or provoke monsters, not instantly, but to choose kind of your battleground or how you want to approach the fight.
It's very cool.
And then to be able to lure monsters into fighting each other. You know, we've seen this to a certain degree in previous iterations of Monster Hunter, where the carry picker may call a monster and it's coming after you, and it happens to just hit the carry picker as collateral damage and things like that. But now you're going to see monsters go at it, and and you're going to use it to your advantage. You know, watch these two go at it, fight. You may participate in the fight to a certain extent, and then at the end, once one of them has fallen or they both have fallen, you swoop in and you kind of finish them off. I think it's going to make for some really interesting scenarios for us.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny that you brought that up, because in some ways that kind of scares me a little bit, that ability to let monsters wear each other out and you just kind of swoop in and take them out at the end. But to an extent, I don't think they're going to let that happen too much, I hope. I think it's still going to be a point where when you get monsters together, there's always going to be a risk that they both just aggro to you afterwards.
Yes.
And I could totally see that happening, which I am happy with, because I want there to be a risk to doing that, to running around and just being like, oh, my Challenger Mantle's back, now let's lure it under this rock. Oh, my Challenger Mantle's back, now let's lure him to the Rathalos. Oh, my Challenger Mantle's back, oh, he's limping, okay, I can kill him. And I really hope that's not the case. I don't think it will be. I think that they will want the monster to be able to live. I think there'll be certain points where it'll be like, okay, these other monsters aren't going to smash it to bits for you the whole time. You know, there might be a cooldown on when they can fight each other, like that. And I mean, like we saw in the there was gameplay, I think, by Game Informer, possibly, which had a 3-monster battle in the
we discussed it last episode.
Wastelands, yes, which was really interesting because, Baroth and Gerodidus did their little animation, but then the rest of it was the monsters, they attacked each other every once in a while, and then they mostly attacked the hunters, and they just happened to get in each other's way. And I was okay with that. I was like, if they're going to get in each other's way, that's fine, because that's what happened normally in the other games. And that's something that you could actually do, is let them wear each other out. But, it's not too extreme that you can, like that, just have one attacking the other over and over, having them leave and then come back, and leave and come back, and reset and kill each other. I'm happy that they're trying, hopefully that's not what they're trying to do.
It's always kind of been a thing in the games, though, that
I think
the monsters injure each other, and a lot of the kind of end of the village arena quest where you have to fight multiple monsters at once, it's always been a valid strategy that you can just kind of run around in circles until they wear each other down. But it's usually slower,
Yes.
and I mean, the ultimate decider is that it's
Slower.
not as much fun. It's more fun to kill them yourself than to let them kill each other. So hopefully, the players can kind of decide that on their own.
Yeah, and that's another big thing is the environmental stuff that they did, like Bcubed talked about. And I'm not too excited about that one place where I can drop rocks, and that one place where I can have Diablos jump out of the ground, and that one place where I can have the dam break on the top of the tree. But I'm really excited just to be like, here's a random tree in front of me, I'm going to knock it down and try to capture him. Or, look, there's a flash bug right here, I'm just going to try to flash him. Or there's a paratoad on the ground, I can try to paralyze him and hopefully not paralyze myself. That kind of just random stuff that just pops up that you can use is really cool, to me. whereas the other ones that are a bit more set up to be used, I'm not as excited about. Because I know that if I played online, those would be things that everyone went, okay, let's lure him to this again and again and again. And that's just not as fun to me. I kind of hope that it's going to be a more organic fight.
Yeah, I think they have to balance, yes, the term I'd be looking for is risk with any of these things. Like, you gotta have some kind of risk involved with me luring a monster, like you were saying. If I'm gonna lure a monster to another monster, there's gotta be that risk there that this may work out in my favor, or it may blow up in my face.
The rocks that fall
I try to go and lure him to this dam, there's also some kind of risk with it, or it can feel a little cheesy for you.
I'm jiving with a lot of what Bcubed is saying. I wish I could hear him more. Just to bring it back to the original question, I'll just chime in with my thoughts on World as a whole. To cast your mind well back to the after year of 2002, I can remember being a gamer and seeing screenshots announced for a game called Metroid Prime. And to the horror of the entire gaming industry and everybody associated, they had turned this beloved, fantastic 2D franchise into this first-person atrocity that looked like garbage, and everybody was very angry, and me included. And then Metroid Prime came out, and it was great. And then shortly after that, Wind Waker was announced, a Zelda game that looked like a cartoon for stupid little kids. And everybody hated it, and everybody was super mad. And then Wind Waker came out, and it was great. And then after that, I was like, you know what? I'm going to not be super angry about a game when it's announced in the very early stages, because game developers probably know what they're doing. And then Monster Hunter World was announced, and I was like, great. Just tear it all down, build it back up. I love Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter is really, really flawed. So, like, I would have been getting downvoted to hell on the Reddit saying, you know what monsters they should bring back? They should bring back none of them. Scrap everything, do everything new. Do it better, and have World be like the rebirth that Tri was. Just do it new and do it well, because like if I'm going to recommend a Monster Hunter game to someone, like I need to sit next to them and be like, okay, you should do this, and you should like ignore most of what the game is telling you, and there's all these hidden mechanics.
You have to teach.
That like you need like a doctoral thesis to know how to do this stuff. So just like I'm excited about the new thing, but I'm also in kind of a weird situation that basically after the first trailer I decided to go media blackout, so I know almost nothing about the game, and whenever I'm listening to a podcast and they're talking about it, I'm skipping ahead and I'm not listening and I'm not watching any trailers. So
I'm sorry.
That's cool. You guys haven't gone into any wild specifics, but yeah, I'm basically just going to wait for the PC launch and I'm going to play
don't listen to our podcast we're opening up tomorrow, because that's all about the new stuff. So.
Yeah, don't worry, I won't.
So there's pretty much.
I mean, like, view it, but don't listen to it. So then we get another, just a little bit better.
I will like, comment.
Well, I will
say.
Ooh, thank you.
But yeah,
I think that's a good way to end it.
That's basically my thoughts on Worlds. Like, I hope, like, rather than doing what Generations
fair.
did,
It's
like,
specifically
hey, look at all this old
a
crap
celebration
we
of
have,
the series over the 10 years,
regardless of how bad it was.
That is not fair.
Oh, that is true. That is true.
I feel like there's a lot of this.
I do agree with that.
Maybe a difference between me and you guys is that listening to you talk, you have a lot of sort of assumed motives. So like Fortuan was saying that they didn't have swimming in a game because of technical limitations, and Gog was saying they didn't have swimming in a game because everybody hated it. But like,
well, that's because I was wrong.
Well, I mean, theoretically speaking, you were both wrong, because you kind of can't assume intent on behalf of developers. Like maybe there was a contract where Sony weren't allowed to have swimming in a game because Nintendo had exclusivity. Like nobody really knows. But when you put out a product,
and no, that came from an interview.
Yeah, but when you put out a product, it's a game and it's called Monster Hunter, and it costs me cash money. Like I kind of don't care what the intent is behind the game. I want the game to be good, and I felt like Generations was just too much old copy pasting. And like I love the idea of World is just all new stuff. Like take the spirit of the game, but like strip out all the old assets and just give us something as new as you can. And like I'm excited to play that. Like this is Monster Hunter Try 2. Like we're doing it. We're doing it again, guys. Stick with us.
Well, they're doing it harder.
They're
doing it way harder than Try.
Try was like it's kind of the same game, but like there's stuff that's different and new, and there's water.
Yeah.
But like this game is like like, holy crap, everything is different.
I think the open map design is the real kick in the pants as to making this totally.
Oh yeah, and the dynamic of all of these interactive things in the world. Just because the game is coming to a newer system, just the ability to have more advanced AI, nothing has to turn twice and then charge, every single time.
I hate the
it's
double
a
tail
very
spin so much.
interesting thing to watch develop.
The double turn.
Yeah. I'm gonna say there are a few monsters that I feel that should be able to stay in the series, and definitely the Wraths are two of them.
Mm-hmm.
They are a flagship of the whole series for a reason, because they sort of embody like what it is you're going up against. They do need updated, which is I'm glad they're being updated, but I don't think they need to be eliminated entirely. And I also feel the same about some other monsters, but I would say that Baroth is not included in that list. So seeing Baroth again in Monster Hunter World is not... It's interesting because I'm glad we're still seeing Brute Wyverns, although that's what Angie is. But also, like, as much as I love Diablos, I think that he is a product of his environment too. Like, if you're going to have a desert map, I think Diablos makes sense because he's really the only believable burrowing wyvern with those horns.
Wow, believable burrowing in air
like
quotes.
all that kind of.
A lot of monsters in Monster Hunter can dig by just rubbing their face against some dirt. It makes me so sad every time I see Durampros and Deviljho go underground. I mean, come on, guys, what are you doing? You don't even have forearms.
Well,
one of the
that's
first
what I'm
times
saying. He has the horns to do that specifically. That's what his horns are for.
He's like ripping at the ground like a bison.
Yeah.
And obviously he wouldn't be able to do that, but yeah, it is the idea.
Yeah.
And
he spins.
That's really funny that you say that because so after World was announced, I think like 3 or 4 friends that are now interested in the new Monster Hunter game, which is really cool. And 2 of them actually went back and they bought Monster Hunter games, and it's me going, "Oh, dude, one of these days we have to set things up so I can come and I can play with you and I can show you how to do everything because this game's going to teach you nothing." But there's another kid that he doesn't have the ability to play, but I showed him the game one time and I fought a Monoblos for him, and Monoblos dug underground and he's like, "Did he just clip underground?" And I was like, "No, he dug underground. He's supposed to do that." He's like, "Oh." And it's just funny to, like, because it is weird because he, like, just looks down and he's like, and he just kind of goes underground.
Swan dive right in.
Yeah, he's got he buffs, he digs with his nose a bit and then he goes under.
Yeah.
But yeah, not long enough, for sure.
Yeah. I still have to say my favorite digging animation is the Neopterons, the ones that can dig, because they literally they jump up and they just slam their faces into the ground and then they dig really fast, and it's horrifying looking.
That actually looks
especially
good, though.
for the shrouded Nursilla.
That looks like a totally believable digging animation. Like, I'm behind on spiders digging.
In sand, that's exactly what they would do. Because it would, like, obviously they're much smaller and lighter, and they can actually do that. But when they're at this size, it's a little bit less predictable. I mean, believable, but
I think the Zamtrios and those guys do it well too.
Yeah. Especially because they're on ice, it makes more sense too, for them to smash through the thin ice into the water.
But yeah, just to clarify
even in the desert.
To clarify my previous point, I'm not saying that Capcom should cut Rathalos and Rathian, because I know they won't, and like if they did, everybody would be insane, like angry except for me. I wouldn't care. But I'd like the spirit of it. I mean, if you want to drop my mic, another way to spell try is T-R-Y. And like this feels like a game where they're actually going to try, much like the first Monster Hunter try. And like we're not going to be back in the old days where it's like, okay, we've got 1 wyvern. Okay, let's copy paste. We'll make him blue. We'll make him red. We'll make him green. We got 2 wyverns. Awesome. Actually, let's make him pink and make him blue. We got 4. Wait, let's make him gold and make him silver. All right, guys, that's it. Let's go to lunch.
Now we got
there's
Flame
ecology
King.
behind the colors, but okay.
We have Flame King, the Poison Queen.
You know what the ecology is behind the colors, Fortuan?
Yeah,
Deadlines
the
and
mechanics-wise, I don't. Yeah, I was like, mechanics-wise, yeah, they're not really that different. They justified it through some ecology stuff, but yeah, I get it. Reskins aren't the best thing. That's why I kind of don't really care about subspecies a lot of the time. I just don't. Green Plesioth is like, I like Plesioth, but
Yeah.
Green Plesioth is like, it's
And
just
when
harder.
you're talking about giant
don't care.
hitboxes hitting you from 14 miles away, there's no better example than the father and son Green Plesioth event quest from 3 Ultimate, where like Green Plesioth could turn like and be 400 feet above your head and he'd still send you flying.
Yeah, he's an awkward monster to fight for sure. All right. Well, I think that about wraps us up. We are about an hour past where I wanted to start, but hey.
I think we'll probably be at 2 hours with some
You'd
of the
be-
stuff I'm probably going to end up cutting out with like the third discussion.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. I bet we'd only be able to cut out 10 minutes. I mean, honestly. It's, you get to cut out a lot less than you think you do. Thank you, Hunters, for joining us today on the Hunters Hub. We'll see you next quest.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Thank you, Hunters, for joining us today. You can find all of our episodes on YouTube or Google Drive download. You can find all our latest episodes on SoundCloud.